Pendidikan. The honorable speakers from Nanyang Technological University, Bapak Dr. Willy Rinandia. Good morning, Pak Willy.
Morning.
And the honorable speakers from Universitas Mercu Buana Yogyakarta, Bapak Daniel Ari Widyatama, SPD, MPD. Morning, Pak Daniel.
Good morning, Bu Areta.
Yeah. And the honorable speakers from Universitas Negeri Jember, Bapak David Imam Yarta, SPD, MPD. Good morning, Pak David.
Yes, good morning, Ibu Areta. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, most welcome. And the honorable of Chief of Language and Art Educations, Bapak Dr. Anur Rafiq. Morning, Pak Anur.
Okay, good morning, Bu Areta. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Pak.
The Honorable of Chief of English Educations, Universitas Negeri Jember, Ibu Eka Wahyuningsi, SPD, MPD. Morning, Bu Eka.
Good morning, Bu Areta.
And good morning
And
for
Bapak Ibu.
all. And good morning for all of the audience from Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Indonesia, and all of the countries that I cannot mention it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today, English Education's Universitas of Jember proudly presents the international webinar entitled The Improvement of Students' Reading Ability Through Web-Based Reading Activities. Okay, without further ado, we go on the first agenda. Sing National Anthem and Hymn of Universitas Jember. Pak Rizky. Thank you for the committee. And now we go on the next agenda is opening speech from our chief, Bapak Dr. Anur Rafiq. Pak Anur, the
Yes,
time is yours.
yes, Bu Areta. Could you hear my voice?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Bu Areta. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning, everybody. My very best greetings to Bapak Dr. Willy Renandia from Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. Bapak Daniel Ari Widyatama from Universitas Sanata Dharma, and my beloved colleague, Bapak David Imam Yarta from Universitas Jember. Also, my sincere greetings to all participants of this webinar, teacher educators, school teachers, teacher candidates, and other groups of people interested in this topic from Indonesia and overseas, Malaysia, Vietnam, and other countries which I may not notice. Today's webinar takes a topic of the improvement of students' reading ability through web-based reading activities. Ladies and gentlemen, looking at the current report of PISA, Program for International Students Assessment, Indonesian students' literacy falls in the position of 72 out of 77 countries participated in that program. So this indicates that it is still a big job for us as educators, teachers, to boost students' reading and literacy competencies. So ladies and gentlemen, today's topic, I believe, will be very useful and interesting. So we would like to listen and get some ideas on the teaching of reading from the remarkable speakers, Pak Willy, Pak Daniel, and Pak David. Okay, not to take much time, so let us make ourselves comfortable on our seat. Last but not least, in this occasion, I would like also to thank the committee who have prepared this webinar, Bu Eka and the team. And I also officially would like to open this webinar by reciting Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We are going to have the seminar, the webinar, and I hope that this webinar will run well and we could reap benefits from all the presentation and the discussion. So I think that's all I need to say. Thank you. Back to Bu Areta. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Pak Anur, for the opening speech. And the next is praying that will be led by Pak Rizky. Pak Rizky, are you with us?
Can you hear my voice?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So before we begin our agenda, I will lead the presentation by using Islamic version. For those who have different religion, you may use your own version. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Hamdan syakirin, hamdan na'imin, hamdan yu'afihi wa yukafi mazidah. Ya Rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhikal karimi wa 'azimi sultanik. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala sayyidina wa habibina wa maulana Muhammad. Rabbi zidni ilma warzuqni fahma. Rabbi zidni ilma warzuqni fahma. Rabbi zidni ilma warzuqni fahma. Rabbi israh li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbana zalamna anfusana wa illam taghfir lana wa tarhamna lanakunanna minal khasirin. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzaban nar. Subhanaka rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wassalamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Thank you, Barita. I'll pass the floor to you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Rizky. Okay, Bapak, Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of opening ceremony. Now we go on the main agenda is the first speakers from Bapak Dr. Willy Renandia, and these sessions will be led by Ibu Mutiara Bilkis. Ibu Mutiara,
Hello?
are you with us?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
You
Okay.
can hear me all right?
Yeah, sure.
Great.
The time is yours, Ibu Bilkis.
Okay, thank you, Bu Areta. Okay.
All right.
Good morning, Pak Willy.
Morning.
Yes, it's a
Morning.
great honor to have you back here. Like 3 years in a row, isn't it?
Pleasure is mine. Yes.
Yeah, 3 years in a row, and we are very proud to have you back here. Okay, Bapak Ibu, before we start, I'm going to introduce you to Pak Willy. If you have been following us in our webinar series for the past 2 years, I'm quite sure that you do not need me to introduce Pak Willy again, because he is literally in almost every single webinar that we had in the past, right, Pak Willy?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, just in case that you haven't been with us before, I'm going to introduce Pak Willy to you. So Dr. Willy Renandia has an MA in TESOL and a PhD in educational psychology. He is a language teacher educator, currently teaching applied linguistics courses at the National Institute of Education, Singapore. And prior to his current position, he taught at CMEO RELC, Singapore, where he also served as head of the Department of Language Education and Research. He has taught in many parts of Asia, including Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. Oh, that's great. His teaching and research interests include second and foreign language pedagogy, extensive reading, language teaching, language testing and curriculum development. And he has also published research articles in international journals, authored an ESL textbook, and edited numerous books and anthologies. He's also a frequent invited speaker at international conferences in Asia. And his book is a very popular book, which is Methodology in Language Teaching, an anthology of current practice. He co-edited with Jack C. Richard, is still widely used in many language teacher preparation and development programs. And his most recent books are Motivation in the Language Classroom, published by TESOL International, 2014, Simple, Powerful Strategies for Student-Centered Learning, written with George Jacobs and Michael Power, what is published by Springer in 2016, and English Language Teaching Today, Linking Theory and Practice. He co-edited with Handoyo Widodo, published by Springer 2016. And you have to know that he maintains an active language teacher professional development forum, which is called Teacher Voices. You can find it in Facebook. So if you want to connect with Pak Willy, you can just go to facebook.com and try to search Teacher Voices. You'll find him there. And he has also written numerous books and journal articles, book review, and conference papers. And currently, Pak Willy is working on 2 books, right, Pak Willy? The first is written with George Jacobs, and it is still in prep. The title is Extensive Reading, What, Why, and How. And the second is already in press, which title is Inspirational Stories from English Language Classrooms, and both are going to be published by Taflin Publication. Okay, if you check his Google Scholar, you will be amazed to see how many citations that he has got so far. He's got 9,843. Can you believe that? Which is mostly, the most citation comes from the book that he wrote with Jack C. Richards on Methodology in Language Teaching. All right, Bapak Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, if I read everything in the curriculum vitae, I'm going to use up all Pak Willy's time to present. Therefore, I'm just going to let you have your fun time with him. And if you do have any question, could you please write down in the chat box? And if you're viewing this from YouTube, then you can ask in the YouTube chat. Later, I'm going to relay that to Pak Willy. Okay, so Pak Willy, you have 45 minutes to present and 15 minutes later for the question and answer. All right, time is all yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ibu Bilkis.
Anytime.
It's always good to see you.
Yes.
And also the other familiar faces from Jember University, Pak Rafiq. Morning, Pak, Ibu Eka, Pak Kiki, Ibu Areta, and also Mas Daniel from Yogyakarta. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to be here with you. Always excited to be sharing 1 or 2 ideas about things that I know a little bit. And today my presentation is about reading. And I would like us to think about this topic together. And throughout my presentation, I will be asking you a lot of questions. You don't have to answer verbally. You can respond through the chat box. But I do have some people here whom I can see on my screen who will be responding to some of the questions verbally, including Ibu Mutiara, Ibu Eka, and Mas Daniel, and also Ibu Areta Puspa. Let me begin my presentation with the most important message that I want to get across to you. This is the most important takeaway. Bapak Ibu, please remember that both print and screen reading is good for you and your students. Print reading, meaning reading books or reading newspapers, reading magazines in front of you, or if you do it online, web-based reading, both are very good for you. Both are very good for your students. Both are very good for the community that you're serving, your kids at home, your family members, and other people in your neighborhood. Reading is very good. There is one question that I'd like to pose with you. Which one is better, print reading or screen reading? What does research tell us about students' comprehension when it comes to reading books or reading on screen, reading on the computer? That is a big question for all of us. Now, interestingly, the results seem to indicate that for close reading, for deeper level of comprehension, print reading is better. Print reading is better than screen reading or web-based reading. So keep that in mind, because my presentation will help us understand why sometimes print reading is better when it comes to deeper level of comprehension compared to screen reading. Yeah. My presentation will help us understand, if we want to promote screen reading or web-based reading, then, basic important things about reading processes will have to be paid more attention to. And that is what my presentation is all about. Okay, going back to the key takeaway, reading is good for you, for everyone, for the community, for your students, for your family members, and so on and so forth. What I have here is some of the major benefits of reading, whether screen reading or print reading. Please choose one and write it down either in the chat box, or Ibu Bilkis, if you are still with me, please choose one for me. Which one do you think is most relevant to you as a teacher, as a parent?
For me,
yes.
Expand vocabulary.
Okay, words, yes. When you read a great deal, your vocabulary also increases a great deal. But Daniel, choose one.
Better writing skill.
Writing skills, yes. I've seen a lot of discussion that shows a very powerful relationship between reading, a lot of reading, and improvement in your writing skills. Ibu Eka, any particular benefit that strikes you as this one is important?
I have another answer about William.
Okay. Yes, you can add more.
I think it can also improve our imagination.
Absolutely, yes. It can increase your imagination. Yes. Reading books take you to different places in the world, and it helps you think, about many other things that you have never thought before. And for older people, if you have older family members at home, benefit number one is extremely important. It prevents memory loss. It keeps you mentally alert it keeps you psychologically healthy as well. And there are many other benefits not indicated on the screen. Yeah, but the key thing to remember again is this: reading is good for you. Reading is good for your students. Remember that. That's the main takeaway of today's presentation. I would like to share with you one, amazing benefit of reading. Let me show you a couple of graphs here. Oops, sorry. Let's look at the first one on the left-hand side. What you have there is what we often see happening. It doesn't matter whether we are looking at the data from Indonesia, from the Philippines, from the US, from any other places in the world. There's a very, very strong relationship between socioeconomic status and reading achievement. That has been established again and again. If you come from a lower socioeconomic status, chances are your literacy level, your reading achievement is likely to be low. If you come from a higher socioeconomic status, then chances are higher that your reading score, reading achievement is likely to be higher. It's not about the money, basically, but it's about the opportunities that more well-to-do families are able to provide to the kids at home. Yeah, but the link is always there. So that's the picture on the left-hand side. That social economic status is associated with reading achievement. There are, of course, exceptions here and there. Look at the other graph. The other graph tells us that reading achievement is also associated with reading engagement. In other words, the amount of reading that you do actually influences your reading ability. Are you with me on that? Please nod your head. Yeah, the more reading you do, the higher your reading achievement. Yeah, low, mid, and high. The more you read, the better you become. Okay. Now, what if we put these two graphs together? What if we put these two graphs together? What's going to happen? And I'm going to show you a very, very interesting data from PISA. I think Pak Rafiq mentioned about PISA earlier on. So if you're looking to, helping Indonesian students to do well on their literacy tests in PISA, this is the answer. Yeah, so we are looking at the very complex data now. So please bear with me. This is what it looks like. Social economic status, engagement with reading, and reading test scores. The medium one, the same thing. You see the trend. It's all the same trend. The higher, the better, basically. The higher engagement, the higher socioeconomic status compared to the medium and low, you can see that they perform better. The same thing here. Yeah, but if there's one thing that you can learn from this graph, Daniel, work with me on this. Very careful. Look at this. Look at that. The white box here indicates the students from lower socioeconomic status, white. But those of them, those students from low socioeconomic status who are engaged in a lot of reading actually score much higher than those students coming from the high socioeconomic status, but they are not doing a lot of reading. Please nod your head if it makes sense. Essentially, the amount of reading, the engagement of reading can negate, can more or less delete, if you like, erase the effect of socioeconomic status. And that to me is a very, very powerful data. And this data came from PISA, the PISA study some years back. So Pak Rafiq, if you're looking for answers to why students in Indonesia are not doing well in terms of their PISA performance, I think the answer is very clear. Students need to do a lot more reading because reading can improve students' literacy skills. It doesn't matter whether they come from low socioeconomic status, mid socioeconomic status, or high socioeconomic status. Yeah, so there you go. Low SES, plus high engagement equals high score. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to share with you what we can do in the classroom, what kind of reading pedagogy we should be adopting to help our students develop their overall literacy skills in whether in Bahasa Indonesia, in Vietnamese, in the Philippine language, or in English. 3 things that I want to share with you. Number 1 is what has been called reading as comprehension, and I'll explain to you what it means. Number 2, reading as acquisition. And number 3, what are the implications for language teaching, for language pedagogy? Let me begin with the first one, reading as comprehension. What does it really mean? Yeah. The kind of reading lessons that we do in the classroom are associated with what I would call teaching reading as comprehension. So what you're doing here is how you can help students develop their reading skills, their reading ability, by improving on their ability to comprehend the text. Now, in order to do that, there are 4 things that you will need to work on to help your students to develop. The first one is an appreciation that reading is a linguistic process. Yeah, reading is a linguistic process. What does it mean? Reading means, in order for you to comprehend a piece of text, you need to understand the words. You need to see the words, and you need to recognize the words as quickly as possible. Yeah, if your word recognition skill is not wonderful, chances are you will not be able to understand what you're reading very well. You will be reading very slowly. You will be reading word by word, and you get very tired very easily. And by the time you get to the end of the story, you may have forgotten what happened earlier on in the story. Word recognition skill is extremely important. Number 2, the ability to group words together, to chunk. The idea to read in idea units is extremely important in reading. You can't just read word after word after word. You have to read in phrases, you have to read in clauses, and sometimes you should be able to read one whole sentence simultaneously, just like that. If you don't do that, then your reading comprehension will be very negatively affected. Yeah, so these 2 are linguistic in nature. You need, the first one, you need to have vocabulary, and the second one, you need to know the grammar of the language. Otherwise, you won't be able to chunk, to group the words together in meaningful units. The next one is discourse skills. Yeah, so chances are that you'll be reading a whole piece of text. It's got paragraphs, it's got structure, it's got organization, that different texts are written, you know, using different styles, different organizational structure. All these things will help you to improve on your reading comprehension. In other words, reading is a linguistic process. I hope you're with me on that. But the key thing to remember is that the processing of language will have to be fluent, will have to be efficient. If not, then your brain will be too busy processing the language at this level. And because of that, you may not be able to engage in high level processes of comprehension. The question is this: how do you develop these skills? Big question for everyone. Ibu Arita, do you want to try? How do you develop these skills? Ibu Arita, are you still there? I know this is a difficult question. How to develop this word recognition skill, the chunking, the grouping skills, and discourse skills?
More reading, maybe?
Yes.
More reading?
Yes.
Maybe?
Yes. A quick answer will be you have to read every day until you become very fluent, until you become very efficient in doing this. There's no other way. Can you do it in the classroom? Like half an hour every other day with guidance from the teacher? I think that will be a starting point. Yeah, the next step will be to help students to engage in, a lot of reading independently on their own, usually outside the classroom. So here is something that we all need to appreciate. That reading at first, initially at the early stage, when your students are in semester 1, in semester 1, when you're working with primary school kids, for example, they will be reading very slowly at first. But with practice, they will be able to read faster. Step number 1 is the learning phase. And this is where the students will have to pay a lot of attention. And it takes a lot of their mental space, actually. So they read very slowly. Yeah. Word recognition is a problem. Chunking is also difficult. Discourse rules also can be a little bit problematic. But with practice, students can move on to the next step, which is known as proceduralizing. This is the actual reading that they have to do, the actual practice of reading that they have to do. They will take them to the next phase. Is that enough? The answer is, well, it's good enough for them to pass the examination, but it's not enough for them to actually become fluent and skillful readers, because the next step is this, automatizing. And again, the quick answer, Ibu Areta is correct. You need to do a lot of practice, a lot of reading every day, maybe 15 or 20 minutes a day, maybe for 1 year, for 2 years, for 3 years, for 5 years, and so on and so forth. The question again is this: are your students slow or fluent readers? I think many of you will say, both in Bahasa Indonesia actually, and also in English, that many of our students are reading very slowly. Yeah, not fast enough. We're not looking for something that is super fast, but we are looking for something that is fast enough so that the students can process the text, the words, the structure, the phrases, the ideas efficiently in their head. So that is the first one. Yeah, please remember, number 1 is that reading is a linguistic process, and it has to be done efficiently and fluently. Without that first level proficiency in reading, the rest will become very, very difficult. The next one, number 2, is this: that reading is a meaning-making process. Now, the key word here is meaning-making. And I'm going to give an example to you. Now, here is an example of a conversation. If you laugh at the end of the story, then you are able to make meaning out of the text. So please be ready to laugh at the end, okay? If you don't laugh, then you're in trouble. Robbie, if you have $5 and ask your mom to give you another 5, how many dollars would you have? The answer is $5, no more, no less. The teacher gets very upset and he says, "You don't know your maths." And Robbie says, "You don't know my mom." If you understand this, and you can laugh, it's not because of the words there, but it's also because of something that you have in your head. So again, meaning making means that meaning is in the text, but meaning is also in the head. Yeah, very important here. Meaning is there in the text, but not completely, because a lot of it, part of it is here in your head. And to the extent that you can bring that meaning into the text, you won't be able to understand the text clearly. Here is another example. Please be ready to laugh at the end, yeah? So that I can see that you actually are with me. How come you failed your grammar test? Dad is talking to David. And David says, "Absent, Dad, absent." And Dad said, "You were absent on the test day or before?" No, Dad. So what's the problem? Dad said. "Well, it's the girl who sits next to me. She was absent on that day." I think you understand this again because you bring meaning into the text. Yeah. The meaning again is in the text and also in your head. without reading, without actually explicitly being told who the girl is, I think we know that the girl is a smarter one. The girl knows a lot about the grammar and is more proficient in the language. That information is in your head, not in the text. Okay? So there you go. So what does it mean actually for us? What does it really mean? What it means is this. We often forget this. To get meaning, you need to bring meaning into the text. In other words, the importance of language knowledge and the importance of world knowledge in reading comprehension. Is that all? No, there's something else that we often forget, that reading is an individual process. You have to think, you have to make use of what you know, the text, the words, and also the knowledge that you have in your head. That reading can be greatly enhanced if you talk to people, if you have a discussion with people, if you share your understanding with other people. There you go. Yeah, reading with others actually help you comprehend the text better, because other people also bring meaning into the text. Yeah. Well, of course, you need to find the right kind of people to share the meanings with them. Otherwise, they will just confuse you instead of helping you. Yeah, and that's why in our in our job, in our professional development, we meet people who have the same interests so that we can share ideas, we can exchange ideas, so that our understanding about things become expanded. So that is the social aspect of reading. The technical term for this is that reading is a social constructivist process. That's a technical term. Yeah. What it means actually is that reading is individual, but reading is also social, and reading is a process of meaning making. Number 3. So we have looked at number 1, that reading is a linguistic process. Yeah, that's the basic foundation. The second part is about comprehension. In order for comprehension to happen, I think you need to depend on the text and depends on your head. The next one, which is extremely important, is that reading is a purposeful activity. Ini kita sering lupa when we teach in the classroom. What we did very often, or what we do very often, is, kids, here is a text that I've selected for you. Please read and answer my questions, answer my reading comprehension questions. That is just one purpose for reading. Yeah. Yeah. The main purposes for reading in school. Let's explore. Let's look at the kind of purposes that we often create or set in our reading lesson. Here, very often is to teach vocabulary, which is fine. Yeah. It's not a big deal. It's okay. Sometimes to teach grammar, the grammar of the language, which is fine. Number 3, sometimes teaching reading strategies like skimming, scanning, guessing words from context and things like that. To me, these are fine. And then also to answer comprehension questions. I think we need to rethink our approach. Yes, occasionally we may want to ask students to answer comprehension questions, but there are other things that we can do with the students, not just this. And I'm going to share with you some ideas a bit later. But first off, let's try to understand. I think we understand this. It's just that when we walk into the classroom, we seem to be forgetting that texts are written by somebody, by a writer, for different purposes. These are some of them. There are many other purposes. These are some of them. Which is the most interesting for you, Bilkis? A text, a reading passage that informs, that gives you information, a reading passage that tells you what to do, how to cook, for example, how to, how to create PowerPoint slides. That's to instruct, to persuade, to motivate, or to help you appreciate, literary work. Which one? All of them?
Motivation.
Motivation, yes, I like that too. I like reading books that motivate me, that give me, insights, inspiration to become or to do better in life. Pak David?
Yes, sir.
Yes, any particular type of text that you enjoy reading?
I guess it's predominantly informative text one, sir.
Yes, informative. Most texts are there in order to tell us something, to increase our knowledge about things that are happening in the world. So that is fine. Let's go back to Ibu Bilqis, motivation. You read that piece of book, for example, that book because you want to be motivated. Now, at the end of your reading, will you be very happy if I ask you like 10 questions? Maybe the answer is no. 10 comprehension questions. The answer is probably no, please don't. Yeah. So but David, if you read the newspaper, for example, and at the end of your reading, I ask you 10 comprehension questions, will you be happy with that? The answer is probably not. Because most often than not, when you read a piece of newspaper, you just want to get, okay, what's happening? What is happening in Surabaya? What is happening in Jakarta? What is happening in relation to Pilpres 2024? People are already talking about Pilpres 2024. You just want to know, okay, who is the most popular candidate? Okay, I know the guy, that's it. Yeah, and you don't want to be asked questions like, okay, what's the name of the guy, where he was born, how many children does he have? You don't want to know that. All you need to know is that, well, this governor from Central Java is the most, potential candidate. That's all. Okay. In other words, here, something for us to think about. Yeah. The kind of questions, the kind of tasks that we design for our students will have to match the type of texts for which the texts are written. So jangan asal. I don't think it's a very good idea to, for any kind of reading, you ask 10 questions to your students. I don't think that's a good idea. Plus, here's another thing. Most of the questions that we ask are what have been called verbal questions. Selalu berkaitan dengan bahasa, and very often related to Bloom's taxonomy, according to the level of thinking that is required from the students. But in life, really, there are many other things that we want to find out, and these things are more interesting and more motivating for the students. Yeah. I think we're all familiar with this, that these are things that students will enjoy doing, actually. There are times when you just want the students to represent their understanding using visuals, using pictures, using graphic organizers, for example. Is that okay? That is okay. And sometimes you want students to just have a discussion, talking orally instead of in writing. And sometimes you want your students to show their comprehension by gestures, by doing some kind of performance, for example, doing a skit, for example. And there are a lot of other things that you can do in order to engage students. The key thing for me is that at the end of your lessons, your students should feel very excited, very happy that they have read something useful and they've done something, in order to learn what is presented in the text. And hopefully, after the lesson is over, the students will then continue reading because they want to, not because they have to. Remember, when you give an assignment, homework assignment, the students feel that they are compelled to do it. They have to do it. But if the students feel excited, feel curious because the information from the text is so interesting, chances are they may want to continue reading on their own. And when that happens, you should be very, very happy because the students will be doing a lot of learning on their own. If you're looking for an example of an activity that is purpose-driven, this is one. This is known as KWL. I'm sure you have heard about this. If you have not heard about this, you can search the internet. There's a lot of information, and this is one of the most powerful, very interesting, very motivating way of getting the students to be actively thinking and also coming up with their own purposes for reading. It's the middle part. The first part basically is asking students what they know about the topic. Yeah, it's the middle part. What do you want to know from reading this text? That is when the students really get to think very carefully. And when they read, they become more focused because they'll be trying very hard to find answers to their own questions. So KWL is just one great example of how we can engage our students in a very interesting, authentic, meaningful, and purposeful reading. I cannot, overemphasize the importance of purposeful reading, because that is what we do. We read because we want to find out about something. We want to feel excited. We want to feel motivated. We want to know something. Yeah. And we want to, sometimes we just want to appreciate the language, the beauty of the language when we read a piece of poem, for example. Yeah, so purpose-driven reading. So we have looked at reading as a linguistic process, remember? Is that important? Yes, of course, this is important, but don't bet your life just on that. So don't spend time every day when you teach reading, explaining new words, explaining grammatical features all the time. That's just part of your job. Second one is an understanding and appreciation that reading is a meaning-making process. And number three, reading is purposeful. And number four, now this is the most exciting perhaps, that reading is an evaluative process. So it's not just about meaning-making, but also about evaluating, about judging what is presented in the text. And people say that this requires a much higher level of comprehension, a much higher level of thinking. Yeah, to be critical, to be able to judge, to assess whether the information is presented is credible, okay, unusual, interesting, or just bad piece of information. In other words, your job as a teacher, as a reading teacher, includes helping your students to understand what is stated clearly in the text and what is implied. In other words, understanding the text and also understanding the subtext. Subtext means meaning that is there, but the author is not telling you explicitly that that's the intended meaning. Again, another important skill is to help students to distinguish between facts from opinions. And this is very important when you work with low literacy students or with very young students. For these people, everything that is written is fact. Remember this. It's a very, very basic thing for us to appreciate. Everything that is written is considered factual. And that is not true. Especially today when you read information from the web, for example, from social media, there's a lot of written pieces of information there. How much of it is fact? And how much of it is opinion, or how much of it is just lies, basically. Berita bohong, yeah? Lies. Another important thing is how we can help our students understand the biases of the writer. And this requires a very, very sophisticated reading skill. Yeah, to be able to read between the lines. That requires a lot of experience, a lot of things, a lot of reading experiences, a lot of vocabulary knowledge, and a lot of word knowledge as well, to check reliability of the information as well. Ibu Eka, this is a difficult question. And that's why I have asked you to try to respond to these questions. What knowledge, skills, and dispositions are needed to develop this evaluative reading skills?
Reading.
Reading, yes, of course. The experience of reading is good. Now, here are some of the things that I've seen. Number one, untuk bahasa Inggris, for English, I think we need at least 3,000 to 5,000 words. The more, the better. If you know more than 5,000 words, that's even better. Yep. But if you read easier, more accessible text, maybe you don't need that many words. Maybe 2,000 is enough. Yeah. But I suspect that for most people who want to develop higher level of literacy, I think they need about 3,000 to 5,000 words. 6,000 is even better. They also need to have a lot of world knowledge. Without this, it's difficult for you to really become critical, to become evaluative. It's very difficult. You need to have a lot of word knowledge. You need to have a lot of world knowledge as well. And then the other one is you need critical reading skills. And this often means that you need to develop a healthy attitude of not believing everything that people are saying. It's a healthy attitude, yeah. Skeptical, but not cynical. Skeptical is okay. You need to develop a questioning mind, always asking questions. And I'll give you an example a bit later. And the idea one is another important disposition is that you need to feel curious, yeah, about things. The question to us is this. I know that many of you are very excited about this topic, that our job seems to be helping our students to become critical readers. But before we can teach our students to become critical readers, we need to ask this question ourselves. Are we critical readers? Are we by nature critical thinkers? Daniel? Difficult question. But the answer is very simple, actually, either yes or no, right? It's a yes/no question. Are we critical or not? Are we critical?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. Ibu Mutiara, Bu Bilkis, yes?
Some of us might be yes, but most of us might be no.
Bu Eka?
I don't think so, but
You don't think so? Yes. Ibu Endar Rahmawati, are you a critical thinker, critical readers?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yes. This is my understanding of me and also of other people and also the opinions of experts. I like what Bu Endar says. Sometimes we are critical, but most of the time we are not. It's a bit sad, isn't it? Sometimes we are critical, but most of the time we are not. And this book provides an answer. I think you have to read this book by Daniel Kahneman. He is a well-known psychologist. If you Google him, you will find that he won a Nobel Prize, actually, for his work. And one of the books that is widely read by a lot of people is this. And this book provides an explanation of why we are not critical. Reason number one, thinking critically is a lot of hard work. Number one. Number two, our brains do not like to work very hard. I think that is true, actually. Our brains do not like to work very hard. Our brains operate on autopilot. That's reason number three. Autopilot means we usually, most of the time, we think very fast. We see something, we see an event, we see, read something, we react almost immediately. That is human nature. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the way we think. That's the way we do things. And because of that, chances are very low that we are critical. Because if you want to be critical, you need to think slowly. You need to step back. You need to distance yourself from what you're doing, from what you're reading. And then you need to start thinking and asking a lot of questions. I hope you're with me on that. I'm not saying that we are not smart people. We are smart people. But criticality is not something that we are born with. No, we are not born to become critical. Maybe a few people out there are critical by nature, but the majority of people like you and me, we are not very critical. But we can be critical if we want to. And one thing for us to be critical, to be discerning, to be discriminating, is for us to slow down. When you read something in the newspaper or in the social media, slow down. Ask yourself questions like this. See, asking these questions, you'll have to slow down. Otherwise, you will be thinking too fast and you'll be making decisions and evaluation very quickly, just like that. But if you slow down, you may be able to become a bit more critical. Who is the author? Siapa sih yang ngomong itu? It's the same guy. Misalnya itu anggota DPR ada yang selalu main Twitter, namanya FZ. I think you know the person, yeah? That's the first thing you need to do. Who is the author? What are their credentials? Anggota DPR tuh. Iya, anggota DPR ada yang canggih, ada yang kurang canggih, begitu. So you need to make that decision even at that level. And then, what is the source of the text? What is the purpose of the text? For that guy, it's the same purpose. Selalu sama, tujuannya sama. He will be saying the same thing and attacking the same thing, almost on a daily basis. Is the author biased or not biased? Is he a credible person? And what is missing here? Is the author presented two sides of the coin, two sides of the story? And then finally, the importance of checking and verifying the contents of the information. Is this very tiring? Yes, it is very tiring. And our brains don't like to be tired. And that's why many of us are not critical. So if you want to teach critical thinking, that's the first thing that you need to do. Train yourself to slow down. Don't think too fast. Don't make decisions too fast. Don't judge, don't evaluate, things too quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for resources that will help you understand the nature of reading comprehension, what sort of things we need to do in our teaching, this is one website that I would like to recommend to you. And the name of the website is readingrockets.org. You can find anything about reading, anything. But please keep in mind that this website is intended for monolingual learners, first language learners. So in Indonesia, that will be for teaching Bahasa Indonesia to children in Indonesia. But I would think that the information is useful with some adjustment for teaching any languages, whether for teaching French, Japanese, English, or whatever. We just need to, to make adjustment here and there. But all the information about reading is available here. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so the first part is reading as comprehension again. There are 4 things that I've just shared with you. There are many other things, but these are 4 that I think that we need to pay more attention to. That reading is a linguistic process, but that is just one side of the story. It's not everything. Number 2, reading is a meaning-making process. Meaning is in the text and in our head. We need to build both capability, helping students to read the text more carefully and also expanding their knowledge base so that they can, add meaning or bring meaning into the text. The next one is reading is a purposeful activity or purposeful process. And we always read with a purpose. Otherwise, the reading becomes meaningless. And when that happens, students feel tired, they become bored, they become less motivated in your classroom. And finally, reading is an evaluative process. Yeah, the ability to be discerning, the ability to be critical, the ability to check the information, whether the information is trustworthy or not. First part. The second part is reading as acquisition. Now, this is the more exciting part to me, and hopefully to you as well. Reading as acquisition simply means this. If you know this guy, I think you have heard about him. He's been criticized, he's been praised a lot. But if you look at the latest article on Stephen Krashen, latest means published in 2021, not written by him, but written by big scholars in second language acquisition, 2021. And the title is, Was Krashen Correct After 40 Years? The answer, interestingly, yes, he was correct. Yes, he is correct. Yeah. And for the past 40 years, he's been saying about this, that reading and also listening and viewing is a great source of comprehensible input. And what's the big deal about comprehensible input? Here, the big deal about comprehensible input is that comprehensible input is a precondition of language learning. Precondition means you have to have it. If you don't have it, nothing much can happen. Precondition means it's a pre-requirement, it's a prerequisite. Bahasa Latinnya adalah it's a sine qua non of language learning. Another important point for us to remember is this. Yeah, we need a large quantity of input. And the input will have to be of high quality. High quality here means the input is interesting, the language is rich, the language presents students with a wide variety of how language is used in authentic communication. So that is what reading as acquisition is all about. Another useful piece of information that we need to know is this, that frequent encounters of known language is extremely important in the process of language learning, in the process of language acquisition. In other words, we need to see the words, the phrases, the grammatical structures, the discourse structures again and again and again and again and again, until all these grammatical structures stick in our head. And when that happens, we'll be able to develop this implicit and intuitive knowledge of the language. Saya ulang ya, implicit and intuitive knowledge of the language, not the explicit knowledge of grammar that we usually teach our students. The present tense is because rules for the past tense are 1, 2, 3, 4, not that kind of knowledge, but it's the implicit and intuitive knowledge that allows you to produce language. And the processes that happen in the head includes a lot of consolidation, a lot of reorganization. When you see something for the first time, it stays very briefly and then it's gone. You have to see that again and again and again until they are, stable, until they are stored, nicely in your head. Kira-kira seperti ini. This is what it looks like. Yeah, if you look at the relationship between input and output. But pay attention to the middle one, the process and the acquisition here. At the end of the learning journey or language learning journey, whether it's Bahasa Indonesia or Bahasa Inggris, I think we want our students to become good writers and fluent speakers, yeah? And for that to happen, according to Krashen and many other people, students need a lot of input. And that input comes from reading and listening. And when students do a lot of reading and listening, they'll have a lot of opportunity to comprehend, to understand, a lot of understanding, to consolidate a lot of information, knowledge, and to reorganize. Reorganize means relearned, yeah, and restructure whatever language features they have learned early on in the classroom or outside the classroom. And then what happens in their head is this implicit knowledge of the language, implicit intuitive knowledge of the language. So reading as acquisition means that the students will be able to develop their reading skills and reading abilities, plus they will also be able to later develop the ability to use the language fluently in speaking and also in writing. Lastly, I think I need to say this again, that reading as acquisition means that the students will need to read regularly so that they get to see a lot of examples of language, real language used for real purposes. And when that happens, we can expect the students to increase, to expand their word knowledge, vocabulary, and also their world knowledge. Now, these are two of the most important when it comes to reading, when it comes to comprehension. Students need a lot of this to comprehend text. Now, I have an example here. If you were to read about G20 that is happening later this year in Indonesia, if you try to understand why Indonesia invites Putin, the president of Russia, and the president of Zelensky, try to read this and see what your comprehension of this text is. To me, I understand a little bit, but I don't understand the nitty-gritty, the implied, the deeper dimensions of the whole thing. I don't understand what G20 is. I know that there are 20 countries that belong to the G20. I know who Putin is, I know who Zelensky is, but I don't know very, very well. Not because I don't have the word, I know the words, but I don't have enough knowledge to make sense of, or to make a very good sense of why Indonesia invites both Putin and Zelensky, and why the US was not very happy with that. I don't know the reason. Although I've been reading this many, many times, but my knowledge base is still very minimal about this. And because of that, I like the quote from this guy. Daniel Willingham is a cognitive scientist. A cognitive scientist is somebody who specializes in how we understand, how we process information, and how we retrieve information, how we use our brains, basically. And this is what he says. He's very critical of this, the first part of reading strategies. If you recall my presentation today, in my presentation today, I do not talk a lot about strategies because strategies are not that important. Yes, we can teach strategies, but I don't think we should spend a lot of time doing this. And this is what he says. Teaching reading strategies is a low-cost way to give developing readers a boost, but it should be a small part of a teacher's job. So if you, in your reading lesson, you spend a lot of time teaching students how to skim, how to scan, how to guess meaning from context, how to make inferences, and so on and so forth, don't bet your life on it. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it's not a wonderful thing either. What he's saying is this: acquiring a broad vocabulary, again, word knowledge, and a rich base of background knowledge will yield more substantial and longer-term benefits. And I agree wholeheartedly with that. Ladies and gentlemen, I've now covered, two major areas: reading as comprehension and reading as acquisition. What are some of the implications? Give me 5 minutes. I should be able to do it in 5 minutes. Yeah. Essentially, there are two approaches to teaching reading. The first one, as you would have guessed, is intensive reading. And this pretty much represents what was covered early on when we talk about reading as comprehension. Yeah, that reading is a linguistic process. Reading is a purposeful process. Reading is a meaning-making process. and reading is an evaluative process. That's pretty much covered in what we normally do in the classroom, known as intensive reading. Yep. The other one, reading as acquisition, is represented as extensive reading. Are they the same or are they different? Well, there are some similarities, but they are largely different in terms of the aim of teaching, in terms of the learning materials that we use, in terms of the learning activities, also in terms of the roles of the teachers and the role of the students in the classroom. Intensive reading are things that that most of you are familiar with, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I will be spending a little bit more time on what extensive reading actually means. Here. In extensive reading, students must read a lot. If they read a lot, they receive a lot of input, and input is good for language acquisition. Plus, eventually, it's also good for developing students' comprehension, both superficial and also deeper level of comprehension. Extensive reading means this. So think about this, that the materials will have to be enjoyable, interesting, enjoyable, motivating. And number two, the materials will have to be easy. I know that many of you will think, if it is easy, then what the students learn? Remember consolidation? Yeah. Remember reorganization? So consolidation and reorganization can only happen if the students are exposed to familiar or known language on a daily basis. That's why easy materials have an important place. In intensive reading, the materials are usually a bit higher than the student's current level. Yeah, but in extensive reading, that's not the case. Next. Now that's what motivation is all about. Students get to choose. The teachers provide choices. That's the role of the teacher, and the students choose what they want to read, motivation. The next one is that students will need to read quickly. Remember, reading is fast and efficient. Yeah, that is possible when the materials are at the student's level and sometimes below the student's level. Anything below is good too, especially for low literacy students, students who do not have a lot of experience in reading. Next, give students a variety of materials to choose from. Again, this has to do with motivation. And finally, dictionary should not be used. In other words, students should know almost all of the words in the text. Okay. But the key thing to remember is, yes, we need both intensive and extensive reading. We need to have a balance between the two because we want to address reading as comprehension and reading as acquisition. So what does balance mean? I think we need to do both. My suggestion is less intensive reading. Less means little, and more extensive reading. At the moment, what is happening in most schools in Indonesia is more intensive reading, both in English lessons and also in Bahasa Indonesia lessons. I think we've been doing things in the wrong way. The proportion is not good. It's not balanced. I think we need to do a lot more extensive reading and spend less time on intensive reading. Now, here is an example of how extensive reading is done in Singapore context. The starting point is what is called supported extensive reading. Now, in this kind of situations, the kids are still very young. They don't know how to read on their own yet. And the teachers play a more important role, reading aloud, reading stories with the students on a daily basis. Locally, it's known as shared book reading, interactive reading, or dialogic reading, reading together with engaging, involving students in the reading process. Yeah. If you teach young children, this is what you do. Yeah. And at the end of it, you don't ask 10 comprehension questions, because that's not the purpose of extensive reading. Extensive reading is to get the students to be excited, to enjoy, to experience a lot of language that they can experience at their level. Is supported reading enough? No, that's the starting point. Gradually, you have to move students away from supported reading to independent reading. And this is what happens in many schools in the world, including in Singapore. Students read books in the classroom. And what is the teachers doing? The teachers are having a lot of fun watching the students read. Isn't that wonderful? You don't actually have to spend a lot of time, because this is how students learn. The fact that you are there in the classroom, the fact that you provide, motivational support to your students is what extensive reading is all about. And the key thing to remember is when the students do independent reading, they will have the amount, the duration, and the frequency of reading. Yeah, please memorize this: amount, duration, and frequency of reading. And that is what extensive reading is all about. And finally, very briefly, yes, I think I agree with you, Pak Willy, but it's hard to find extensive reading materials. That's not true, because extensive reading materials are easy to find. You just go to the internet. Here is one website, Books for Asia, by the Asia Foundation, for example. It has a lot of free books that you can download for free. Or students can read it on screen as well. And Daniel will talk about screen reading or web-based reading later on. Yep. It's another website that provides a lot of free materials that you can read on screen. It's a web-based materials, completely free. More than 1,000 reading and listening materials as well. ER Central. And if you have a bit of money, Boeka, I tried to invite Paul Goldberg, that's the guy. He can't make it today because Keseripahan, his uncle passed away. So he's not able to join us today. And he sends his apologies to you. If you have a bit of money, not very expensive. I mean, it's worth having a digital library of books, graded books, specially written for children, for students who are still developing their proficiency in the language. 1,500. This one has about 1,500 graded readers from legal sources, yeah? And because of that, Paul will have to pay the publishers, in order for them to allow him to, make the books available in his website. Now, this is not just a website, passive website, it's an active website, because it has a built-in learning management system. So the teachers can control, the teachers can track students' reading progress, guide students in selecting reading materials, can assign activities, and many other things. And you can do it, you can use it for research purposes as well, because all the data is captured by the system. So it's a complete system. So hopefully Jember will be keen to subscribe to this. Really, if you can find something free from the internet, good for you. But if you want something that is more, standard, useful for teaching purposes, now this is the way to go. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have spent time together looking at reading as comprehension. 4 things: reading as acquisition, and some of the implications for teaching. But again, the key takeaway of our session today is this, that reading is good for you, reading is good for your students, reading is good for your children at home, and reading is good for your community. If you're thinking about Indonesian students in general, or maybe Vietnamese students, if you want to increase the literacy level of your students, there's no other way. In addition to teaching reading lessons in the classroom, you need to get your students to do a lot of reading independently on their own. Because reading is the most powerful way to improve on students' reading skills and reading abilities as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my last slide. I have a website. It has a lot of free resources. The QR code is there. You can download almost anything that I have on the website free of charge, completely free. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Ibu Bilqis, back to you.
Right. Thank you very much for the stupendous presentation, Pak Willy. We do have several questions here. Well, the time is not enough actually, so I'm just going to sum up some of them to be one question. So there's this question about how do we evaluate our students' reading skills if they have a different level of fluency and input in one class, and sometimes in ESP classes, we have brand new topics, right? And students are not very knowledgeable about that topics, and how do we cope with that problem of reading when they do not, when you want to, for example, do the KWL, but students know nothing about the text? That's the first question.
Okay. Yes, the last question. Let me just address the last question first. Can we use KWL if students don't know much about the content of the text in the first place? I think the answer is, well, you have to change the text that you're using. I think you need to find text that are quite familiar to the students. Not completely familiar, but largely familiar. I mean, there's a piece of research that I read recently that in order for students to be able to really comprehend a text, they need to know at least about 60 to 70% of the content of the text. And that means that the text will have to be familiar to some extent, or to a large extent, to our students. So it's a matter of choosing the right kind of text for the group of students that you're teaching. The other part of the question is very interesting, but unfortunately, it's not easy to answer. And a lot of people in many different places in the world have been grappling with the question is how we can address our students who come to us with different levels of abilities, different needs, different interests, different motivations, and things like that. But fortunately, people are beginning to explore a pedagogical approach known as DI. Now, DI is big in Singapore. The Ministry of Education is pushing, encouraging teachers to think about how DI can be used to address the different needs of the students. Now, DI stands for differentiated instruction. It's a beautiful idea, but at the moment, it's a bit difficult to implement. When I say difficult, I'm not saying that it is impossible to apply. Now, the idea behind DI is very attractive, it's very interesting. DI looks at three things that teachers can sort of play with, if you like. The first one is the content. You can use different contents to address different needs of your students. In the context of reading, for example, you can find 3 different types of texts or 5 different kinds of text and use this in your classroom. What you do is you give students choices, choose whatever that you want to read on. The text may be similar in terms of content, but may be written by different authors, may be written in different style and written in using different, different language difficulties. So that's the first one. But the key thing is choice, yeah? The students get to choose which one they want to read. I know it's messy, it's difficult. That's why I said it's difficult, yeah? But it's not impossible. Number 2 is the process. So the first one is the content, the second one is the process. How you deliver the teaching, how you teach in the classroom can be varied, so that you can address the different needs of the students. Sometimes you want to present verbally, sometimes you want to use graphic organizers, sometimes you want to use video materials even before the students come to class. So the process can be differentiated. And finally, the third one is the evaluation, the outcome. Can you vary the outcome? Can you use different means of assessing your students? The answer is yes, we can. Again, it's a bit messy, but if you think about how you can play with these major variables, content, and then the teaching, the delivery, and the evaluation, I think you'll be able to address the different needs of the students. But I'm sure you'll come back to me and say, well, in that case, then the students will learn something that is different each time. The answer is yes. If you believe that student-centered learning is the way to go, that's what you need to do. And that's the reality. Yeah. Even if you use the same material, students will learn differently anyway. So if you're looking for something, the answer is DI, differentiated instruction. It's a pedagogy that is becoming very popular because it's believed that it can address, it can help your teaching becomes more inclusive. Inclusive means you invite, as many students to be involved, to be engaged in your lesson. As I said, people remember, is it easy to do? No, it's not easy to do. The easiest thing to do will be for us to use the same materials, to use the same teaching approach, to use the same evaluation technique for teaching purposes. And we've been doing that for centuries, yeah? And the reason people are not happy with that is that that is the least effective, actually. That is the least effective way of teaching today. Thank you, Ibu Bilkis, for
all right.
giving me that difficult question.
Yes, I do think that is the question that haunted us all these years, right?
Yeah.
Every of us has that kind of a problem.
Yeah.
And so I kind of imagine the amount of work that you have to do for that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but it's, as I said, it's a big thing in Singapore. The Ministry of Education is encouraging teachers to explore. Teachers
I hope that we can do that too.
Yeah, teachers may not be able to fully adopt DI, but I think it's the first step to work towards that direction.
And I do think that's a great idea. Like what you say, it's difficult, but it's not impossible.
It's not impossible.
Yeah. I hope that we can apply that in our classes.
Yeah. The key thing to remember is this: that choice is a big topic now in education. If we are willing to give students choices, we haven't done it yet. Yeah,
we are the one who choose.
Because yes, all the choices are made by us, the teachers, because we believe that we know everything. The students don't know nothing. That's why we choose everything for the students. Big mistake.
So in terms of evaluation, can the students choose themselves? Because you said that teachers should provide different kinds of evaluations as well.
Yes, not on the big final high-stake test, no.
Oh, I see.
Yes, during the process of learning, I think we should try the best we can to cater for different style of evaluation. Remember what I said earlier on about different multiple ways of assessing, of checking comprehension.
Yes.
For centuries we've been doing it in one way. Same way, and that is verbal and that is written. So written comprehension, written answers to comprehension questions, only one way. There are many hundreds of different ways that we have not explored yet. I think we should start thinking about how we can provide students with multiple choices.
Okay, we have to think this through again. I hope this answers your question, Borita. All right, so I'm really sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that we do not have much time left because we have to go to the next session of speaker with Kak Daniel. But actually, this is a great time to have you with us, Pak Willy, and we have one little token of appreciation for you. So please wait a moment. Can you see the screen already?
Yes, very pretty.
Yeah, okay. So this is what we can give you, Pak Willy. Thank you so much for being with us this morning and again in the other two webinars in the future. Okay, and That's what we're going to have, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry if I cannot read your question and Pak Willy can answer that, but later you can visit Pak Willy's website for more information. You can also contact him through Teachers Voices in Facebook. Again, Pak Willy, one thank you is not enough for you to be here with us. Okay, now I'm turning back the session to Bu Areta.
All right, thank you, Bilkis, for leading these sessions. Very insightful and informative sessions with Pak Willy. Thank you, Pak Willy.
Thank you again, Pak Willy,
for giving me super sessions for this morning. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, now we go on the second speakers with Bapak Daniel Ariwidiatama from Universitas Mercu Buana, and this session will be led by Ibu Eka Wahyuningsih. Ibu Eka, are you with us?
Yes, Bu Areta, I'm here.
Okay, the floor gives to you, Ibu Eka.
Yeah, thank you, Bu Areta. Good morning, Bapak Ibu. Today, for the second session, we are going to be with Pak Daniel. Are you here, Kak Daniel?
Yes, it's there.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Yes, okay. Bapak Ibu, before having his presentation, then perhaps it is better for us, all of us, to know a little bit further about Pak Daniel. He is from Universitas Mercu Buana Yogyakarta, from Prodi Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris, and he is now the head of international affairs in UMPY. And his research interests are assessment in ELP, ER, or extensive reading, and project-based learning, and also critical thinking development. Besides those positions, Kak Daniel is also Kepala Bagian Kerjasama Luar Negeri Universitas Mercu Buana Yogyakarta from 2020 up to now, and he is also the Director of Program and Development from ITEL, or Indonesian Technology Enhanced of Language Learning, from 2018 up to now, and he is also the coordinator of Central of English for International Communication in Lembaga Bahasa Universitas Sanata Dharma. And the other position that he ever had is the coordinator Center of English for Specific Purposes from Lembaga Bahasa Universitas Sanata Dharma. So without further ado, Bapak Ibu, let's go to Kak Daniel's presentation. Kak Daniel, you have for about 45 minutes to deliver the materials, then another 15 minutes to have the question and answer session. The time is yours, Kak.
Okay, thank you so much, Ibu Eka, for the wonderful welcoming session, and I'm always happy to be here. This is my second time to be invited as to share my experiences here, and the first one also was with Pak Willy at the time. It's been a year ago, and I thank also Bapak Anurofik as the Dean of FKIP Universitas Negeri Jember, and also all the committee that still invites me, to keep this collaboration happen. Yeah, so David, and then Bu Bilkis, Bu Areta, Mas Kiki, and all the friends from UMG. And actually, I'm a bit sad because Pak Willy's session was ended. I feel like I need to listen more to his thoughts, to his speech. And again, thank you so much, Pak Willy, for this beautiful session. And actually, I also would like to greet some colleagues which are here. I saw some of my best friends here, Ibu Maria Victory, and then Ibu Neta from Bali, and then Ibu Safitri from Kalimantan, and so many great participants. Thank you so much for staying tuned with this professional development webinar. All right, let me share my screen then. Okay, so I don't know if I can hit 40 minutes or maybe less than 40 minutes for my session. Let's just go with the flow. And as you can see on my screen right now, the focus of my talk will be technology-infused extensive reading activities. So in this opportunity, though the webinar's topic is on how to improve reading students' reading ability, but I will specify that into how technology can help teachers or lecturers to support extensive reading activities. Okay, and this is where I'm from. I'm from UMBY or Universitas Mercu Buana Yogyakarta. Please come and visit UMBY, yeah, when you have leisure time. And we will host ITEL conference to 2022, yeah. And we will be happy to invite teachers and students. Yeah, we have special prize for students. Please to come and enjoy Jogja. Ibu Eka will also be there. Am I right, Ibu? Okay. And I'm also involved in ERA, Indonesian Extensive Reading Association, and some of my sharing today will be closely related to what I've been doing in my daily basis as a teacher in motivating my students to read. So if we have a look at this title, so I'm so in love with how we use technology in class, then I use this opportunity to present some ideas that can be useful to encourage students to read. Okay. Right, so this is again my focus of today's sharing. Then eventually, I hope that all these activities later can develop positive attitudes towards reading to our students. As Pak Willy Renandia just mentioned earlier, that higher reading or literacy skills is in line with socioeconomic status. This is very interesting. Thank you so much, Randy. Okay, now, yeah, as I mentioned ER in my slide, so I want you to, yeah, go to menti.com, and I have some questions for you, all the participants. There are 104 participants in this evening, in this morning. So kindly go to menti.com and answer the questions there. Take your time. So my questions will be related to ER. Yeah. And I'm sure that you will still remember what Willy Renandia just mentioned, yeah, and highlight. Okay. All right, what comes to your mind when you hear the term extensive reading? So, more, do you mean that we need to do it more? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, of course, you still remember and you agree with our previous discussion, that we need to do more and more extensive reading, and we need to encourage students. Yeah, joyful. All right. Yes. So the text should be easy. The text should be enjoyable. So yeah, I'm waiting for more responses. Yeah. It should be interesting. Yes. It should be challenging. All right. So instead of to make it only interesting, yeah, maybe some ideas that I will present today can also be useful to make our activities more engaging, yeah, more challenging, informative, to be more fun. Thank you so much for those who responding to this survey. All right, so I agree with you that those ideas are pretty much correct, Bapak Ibu. So in order to preserve, yeah, to encourage students to read more, we need to find right strategy. Yeah, I guess. And let's compare your findings to what I have here. Right. So this is my answers. Yeah, these are my answers. Reading easy text, yeah, and then reading for pleasure, fun. It should be accompanied with easy vocabulary, and we also just mentioned informative, okay, and some genres which we have that my students also love is fairy tales, and then they also love reading comics. And okay, so I tried to connect that with Pak Willy Renandia's idea on what ER actually is, yeah, and this is what I conclude by reading some of Pak Willy's paper, and I took this idea and tried to highlight the easy, okay, the materials should be easy, and the goal is to build fluency. And apart from that, yeah, from his paper 2, I found that in order to design suitable ER activity for students, then they need to be able to read quickly, and they should be happy with the text they are reading. And of course, the text should be comprehensible, yeah, so they don't need to open dictionary. Okay, so I try to adapt this strategy into my class, and here I have some points to share, yeah, starting from pre-reading activities and post-reading activities. But I'd like to focus on 2 other points here. Yeah. So in order to conduct ER activities which are into these principles, so what should we do as a teacher or lecturer? And is there any technology that we can use in class, starting from low technology and high technology? Okay, so let me start from pre-reading activities. Okay, my session today will be sort of like a mini workshop maybe. So I will give you some ideas that you can later apply in your class, and hopefully it's going to be beneficial. So the first one is I used Decider and Mentimeter to do a pre-reading survey. So again, all these activities are supposed to enhance students' motivation in reading when we do pre-reading survey. Who is familiar with Decider here? Can you type yes if you are familiar with Decider or Mentimeter?
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of uses this a lot, I know. Okay. All right, so we can ask something like what genres students like to read, and then why they like to read short stories or novel, okay, and how they usually read books, and even what their favorite book authors. Okay, so basically, I'd like to show you how to use Decider. That's very easy. Okay, so just go to Decider.com, okay, and it will direct you to this page, and you can type, okay, something like what is who is your favorite? Who is your favorite? Press go. Right, as simple as this, and you can copy this link and paste it to your friend or to your class. Okay, so please have a look at the chat box. I've sent you the link there. Right, so it's okay if you want to respond to that question. So you may know the experience of using Decider. Right, so one of you just mentioned Jack London, right? So probably you ask me questions, Pak Daniel, why don't we just use WhatsApp group? Okay, that's a good question, but in Decider we can support our others' answer with an argument here. Okay, you can support or you can disagree with the argument. Yeah, if you support that, or if you agree, then you can say this is your idea. Right. So, and you can also vote for. Okay. So give it a try. How about you? Thank you for your answers. Okay. So nice. Yeah. You can imagine if this kind of discussion happens in your class. Yeah. So my students here love John Grisham, Chichi Botejo, Harper Lee, Jack London, Sidney Sheldon, and of course, Pak Willy. Thank you. All right, so that's very easy, by the way. Okay, let me go back to my previous slide then. Okay. The second reading activity that we can use with our students, pre-reading activity, is using word wall. Yeah, we can ask them to match characters with relevant story title. Okay, so let us go to word wall. Now, again, this is pre-reading activity. So just before we, we give them text, or we can also do that for post-reading activity though. Okay, we can check their understanding, for example. Yeah. Well, this is actually not a test, just a fun activity before we, give them text. Yeah. So, for example, I can go with anything. Just do it quickly. Okay, I forgot to turn on the sound. It has sound effect behind. Yeah. So what do you think? Please share your ideas. Okay. Now, please like this. So you can imagine if you give this kind of activity to your students and they do this together with their friends using their smartphone in class. So this is word wall. And the other activity that can be possibly done in class is reviewing the vocabulary using Quizlet. Okay, how many of us here know Quizlet? Please share your answer.
Me.
Bu Eka. So how do you like it, Bu Eka?
At the time, I tried to create one because I do believe that besides having the flashcards sent by some others or created by some others, then we can also create our own flashcards in Quizlet. Is that? And at that time, I tried to have it as one of the media to help my students in listening class. So I tried to share the vocabulary that the students are going to have in their audio.
Okay, that's nice. So Bu Eka is right. So we can use this to not only to develop their vocabulary, but also pronunciation, yeah, Bu Eka, yeah. Because,
and also some pictures, because we can also insert the pictures, but it is not necessary for us to have the pictures because the pictures are provided in Quizlet.
True. Okay. So this is a super duper fantastic application. Yeah. And right now I'd like to give you an example. Yeah. Before I ask my students to read a short story entitled The Gift of the Maggie, for example, then I will let them explore the vocabulary being used in the story. This is just an example. Okay, now, for example, I have a class for, let's say, elementary school students, maybe, or SMP students, then we can use this. Yeah. And also, in less than a second, we can create a quiz in one click. But that is not our point today. So this is Quizlet will be useful to accompany our students develop their vocabulary before coming to reading activity. Okay, so Quizlet. Right. Now we come to the next. Okay, so let me jump to post-reading activities. And the purpose here is to check if they have read the reading materials. So once again, it's not to disturb them. Yeah, sometimes I'm afraid to give my students another activity while they enjoy their material or text. Yeah. So we can do few strategies like predicting the title of the story. And I use MindMeister. Okay, so here is the procedure. So students will read a similar short story using their smartphone, and a MindMeister link will be shared to them once they finish reading the story. And every student has to make a prediction what could be the best title for this story. So here we go. Right. So I presented the text here. So basically, MindMeister is a kind of mind map maker, yeah, that we can work collaboratively with our students. Yeah. And look at here, I let them read the story in this website too. Yeah, not a long one, just a short one. And yeah, and then I asked them to provide, yeah, or create an alternative title for this story. Very easy, right? But here, yeah, they happily worked on this task, yeah. And again, this will not take much time for them to do this. And the other purpose is that why we are using this application, because they can compare directly to their friend's answer, yeah. And I can also challenge them to, you know, to create another activity for this one, instead of only this question. Okay. All right. So this is MindMeister. The next simple activity that we can use in class with our students is play literature circle questions. Okay, so there are two applications that are possible to be used in this activity. The first one is Wheels of Names, and the other one is Word Wall. Okay. So here, the teacher would give students some questions which are drawn using Wheels of Names and Word Wall. But actually, these questions are not meant to check their comprehension. So let me give you some examples. Bapak Ibu. Okay, so one example of the question is, what other books did this remind you of? Okay. So of course the answer might have nothing to do with the book that we just read, yeah. Not talking about the characters, even checking our understanding about the book and so on. Okay. And the other example of the question is, does any of the characters remind you of anyone? No, things like that. So this kind of question will be connected to students' life, and this will eventually make them engaged into the activity. So let's just finish. All right. So once we get the question, then we can throw this to any students, yeah, in our circle. Okay. So what do you think? So let me know your thoughts about this idea. Okay. And I'd like to know how many of you have ever used this kind of tool, yeah? And these are some activities that me and my students had, yeah, during our activities, yeah. And I gathered them in a basketball court around our campus, okay, in a very good morning, and I asked them to find their favorite story, and I asked them to read silently, yeah, and yeah, look at them. And they are very, very engaged into what they are reading. And this is the following up activity. I use wheels of names. So I asked them to answer the questions on that wheel. At the end of my session, I will show you the video, how it works. Okay. And the other possible activity that we can do, yeah, to accompany this wheels of names activity is by storytelling, yeah, by retelling again the story that they just read. And they will, of course, their partner will listen to them carefully and, yeah, give it a try. The other possible activity that Bapak Ibu can do with your students is making an alternative ending of a story. And here I use Bitmoji and Google Slides. Now, I'd like to know how many of you here know Bitmoji application. Sudah ada yang pernah memakai Bitmoji?
Me.
Bu Eka again. I know
And I also,
lots of stickers.
I also, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I have been conduct Bitmoji for my class, Pak Daniel.
Oh, really? The same technique?
Yeah.
Using Google Slides too?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Bu Areta. It must be very fun, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, Bapak Ibu, you can see the procedures here, but to give you more details, yeah. So first, to play this activity, yeah, teacher needs to create the virtual room for students first. Yeah. Okay, let me give you the example. Okay, right. Okay, so this is my class. Yeah, I invited my students to create their own avatar, and this is my avatar. And you won't believe me that these are all designed using PowerPoint or Google Slides. Okay, and I have to give them like more space, yeah, because I have like 20 students in a room, yeah. And you know, we can do this in online setting or in face-to-face, yeah. But at this time, I used my chance in offline class, yeah. So we work together in class, yeah, and still fine. Yeah. All right. So now the next thing to do is, after having them post their avatar, then to present them one simple story. And of course, I have to know their basic competence, so this story might not be too difficult for them. Okay. And after that, yeah, after giving them time to read, then I make them post again their alternative ending of the story presented before. Okay, and these are my students' work. Okay. Right, and the other benefit of having this activity is they can work collaboratively. So we definitely give them not only chance to perform their reading skill, but also to build up their collaboration skill. Yeah. And of course, as a teacher, I need to give them an example. Yeah. And my students are even more creative than I am. Okay, so look at this. All right. Okay, so what do you think, Bapak Ibu? Do you think you will perform this in your class? Okay, so I promise your students will like it. Yeah. All right, so the other possible activity here is, right, for that I need to give you some more situations, yeah, happening in our class while doing this activity. So look at them. They can use their smartphone and they can also use their laptop or other devices like tablet and stuff. So yeah, and you know what the teacher is doing in class? Yeah, capturing the moment. Because yeah, they are just unstoppable to read and create the avatar. And I was so happy to be around them. Okay. The other possible activity that we can present in class as a post-reading activity is to create a poem after reading a story. Okay. So don't worry, we have a great application called Plot Generator that students may not, may not be having difficulty to create their own poem. Okay, because later with Plot Generator they can create a poem into this way. Okay. So a bird-like, a bird-like figure poem, right? And this is Michael Jackson, I guess. Right. So if you want to know more about Plot Generator, then you can go to my YouTube channel. I just created a tutorial on how to work with Plot Generator. Okay. Right. So this poem would be better if they connect the ideas from the book that they read. Okay, and they can use any adjectives presented from the book or any nouns, yeah, or adverbs, and they can just fit it into the application, and it can create the poem by itself, something like this. So just go to plotgenerator.uk and you'll find this one. Okay, you can you will have so many types of poems, something like concrete one, like the one I just presented. Okay. Now, as simple as this, you can just fill in these blanks with any components needed, something like noun, color, size, and it can generate all the the words into a particular figure. Okay. The other activity that my students love to do with is to find the differences, yeah, between two stories presented in video and also in a text version. Well, actually, they are stories with the same title, but one will be presented by Edpuzzle and the other one will be presented by using website. Okay. In order to guide students to do this activity, then we can start with Padlet. Okay. So all the instructions are here. So we have the ugly duckling story, which is presented on into text. Yeah, this is on PDF, and the other one is another version of ugly duckling story presented on Edpuzzle. Okay, so once they work on this, they would have to answer the question here. Okay, which ugly duckling story version do you like the most? And please share your reasons. They can work with their partners, and yeah, look at this. They are happily answering the questions. Okay. And you probably ask me questions. Why is the activity that simple? Yeah, again, this post-reading activity should not disturb them, should not interfere the main activities. So this is just an additional activity. And you probably also asked me what Edpuzzle activity is like. So let's give it a try. Okay, so basically we need to create a class, a class first. So like in my case here, so I have two classes because I'm teaching technology enhanced language learning class. So I sent the assignment to this class, and this is the video, how the video looks like. So basically they will listen to and watch the video with some questions there.
The Ugly Duckling. On a beautiful summer day, a family of ducks is taking a swim while another is enjoying a stroll.
Yeah, so I'm sorry because I cannot track
The Ugly Duckling.
Here. It will
on a beautiful summer
somewhere
day, a family of ducks is taking a
questions.
swim while another is enjoying a stroll by the bank. But one duck is sitting on her eggs among the tall leaves.
I wonder when my babies are going to come out. They are taking so long to hatch. It is so lonely. No one has the time to visit me.
But Mommy Duck didn't have to wait too long. Soon the eggs started cracking and the little ducklings started taking small, unsteady steps out of their shells.
Quack, 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 quack. Oh, my babies are so beautiful. Now come and line up here, all of you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, there should be one more.
Mother Duck looked around and saw one egg which had not yet hatched.
I think I will have to sit again on this egg till it hatches. It seems pretty large.
Soon the last egg hatched, but the duckling that crept out was large and ugly.
This little fellow doesn't look like his brothers and sisters.
The next day, Mother...
Okay, so the question appears like this, and this is what students should answer during their time watching the video. Okay, so the duckling that finally hatched was large and ugly. So very simple question like this. And as you can see on the Padlet, so after finishing the story, on the video, they will have to answer the questions with their friends. Okay. So this is finding the differences. They can start pointing out the plot or the figures, the characters, and etc. Next, the other possible activity to support them and to encourage them to read is design a poster. So students will design a poster that captures the core or the gist of the book or story. Then they can focus on the moral value of the story and make a quote over it. All right, so after having them read the story, they can design a poster like this. And they can post it in social media and probably can tag their friends or their lecturers. The other possible activity that we can do as a post-reading activity is storyboard that. So here we use storyboard that to create a comic. Well, to make them able to work on storyboard that, we probably need to give them sort of a tutorial first. But after they are able to use storyboard that perfectly, now we can ask them to create such a comic which visualize what they have read previously. Okay. And they can use Vocaroo to record their voice as if these two figures can talk, something like this.
Can you help me turn the workers who fell there?
Okay, so you may call this as digital storytelling, yeah, that is combined with extensive reading activity. And you can even improve the idea on how to develop this activity on your own. Okay, so yeah, again, I'd like to quote Pak Willy's idea here, yeah, and I hope I didn't, mistakenly quote that, yeah, Pak Willy. So we need to keep in mind that the main purpose of post-reading activities is to motivate students to read more books and should be designed in such a way that they are not seen as an unnecessary burden by the students. And activities should be cognitively and effectively appealing. So the students develop, it can develop positive attitudes towards reading and associate reading with enjoyable activities. All right, and I'd like to add with some more ideas. Just do it, Bapak Ibu, yeah. If you think that you are not tech savvy enough, just do it. Okay, there are so many good resources on the internet, and keep encouraging your students to choose their own story, yeah, and make them collaborate with their classmates, because reading together will be more fun. Be flexible with the time, yeah. Don't disturb them, don't interfere with them, yeah. And elaborate the alternative use of one single application, like Padlet can be used, we can design more activities, not only one activity using Padlet, yeah, or even Telegram now, which is very famous, yeah. And rethink again the complexity level and goals of the activities. It should not be, burdening, yeah, and again attached to the goal. All right, and do I still have time, Ibu Eka?
Yes, Kak, for about 5 minutes.
5 minutes, perfect. So I'd like to show you video compilation, yeah, that I myself captured during my time in teaching ER in class. So hopefully you later can have sort of imagination on how to or how students will like it and how we enjoy the activity. In a moment. Can you see my screen now, Ibu Eka?
Yes, Kak.
Okay, so let me play the video. So this is becoming my new job as a videographer now. So this is the moment when I started Wheels of Names activity with my students. So on the other day, we play Add Puzzle. At first, I gave them a Quizlet activity, and I let them watch a video after they read the text version. This is Bitmoji, an application to create an avatar combined with Google Slides. You can see how they work together, even if it is in a reading class. And I can see that my students are truly a fast learner. If you wonder how much time needed to create such a work that I just presented to you, in less than 15 minutes, you can do that.
Ending. And I think today activity is very fun, and this activity, I think it's a new breakthrough to make learning more effective and also more interesting. Because as we know that students in class mostly feel bored if we told they must reading, and I think this activity. I think this activity using Bitmoji will very fun. Plus they can develop their creativity with creative avatar. My name is Farah. This is my friend. My name is Shweta. My name is Adena. And we have finished this tutorial class, and I think it's very fun and interesting activity. I think it's very fun today for learning using Google Slides and because we can really credit our avatar and it was very interesting. Yes, I agree. I know this activity we produce a reading activity with Thank you! Hello, my name is Tina. Today we just learned about reading using Bitmoji and Google Slides. Me personally, I love the whole class activity because the teacher let us practice in the open class and the students make their own activities. I think that was brilliant.
Mind mapping, but it was also my first time using this.
Yeah, and this is how I conduct my online
homework
class
with your friends.
and in that
So,
my master into the reading activity.
good. Come on, you can make
The other fun
a thicker
activity
line
that
as
we
well.
can present to students is
Nice.
using
More,
Jamboard.
please. You can make a different color of your line when possible. Yeah. And it's okay to have a similar answer with your friends.
All right, Bapak Ibu. So those are some ideas that I can present to you today, and hopefully this can give you more, like support or even, willingness to start over again that we can produce similar activities in class to encourage students to read more. And if you want to know more further about these all steps in detail, feel free to contact me. So again, thank you so much for the chance, and yeah, stay healthy.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kak Daniel, for so many applications that you have given to us. Bapak Ibu, as what we know from the curriculum vitae, Pak Daniel belongs to ITEL, Indonesian Technology Enhanced Language Learning, and he is also an active member of IERA, Indonesian Association of Extensive Reading. And that is why perhaps we can have so many applications from Pak Daniel. Among them are Three-Sider, WordWall, Quizlet, and MindMeister, and also Bitmoji and Slides. Masterpiece Generator, I think, yeah, because that is the biggest one. So from Masterpiece Generator, we can go to Plot Generator, Poem Generator, and some other generators that we can find in Masterpiece Generator. And Edpuzzle and also Padlet, and this is also one of my favorite platform because we can do so many things with Padlet, and Canva, and also Storyboarded. Talking about Storyboarded, storyboarded.com, I ever created a comic based on the website, but I never think that we can also insert Vocaroo. I think that is a new thing. I'm going to try to have Vocaroo in one of the comic that I'm going to create by using Storyboarded. And if I can say, Bapak Ibu, today's from Pak Daniel's presentation, we can have some websites in which we can ask the students to collaborate and also to be creative, because by having, let's say, Three-Sider, we can also ask the students to collaborate, expressing their opinion in the Three-Sider that we can present to the students. And also from Canva, when we try to ask the students to create a poster, then we can also ask them to be creative. We want to know how creative they are in creating something based on the text that we gave to the students. Is there any questions, Bapak Ibu? I don't think we have any questions in our chat box, Kak Daniel. So once again, I have to say thank you very much for sharing so many websites and applications to all of the audience here. And Bapak Ibu, I do hope that we can take the benefits from the websites and applications sent by Pak Daniel. And we are going to see you perhaps in ITEL in Jogja next month. And we can see you each other. Pak Daniel is going to be there, and I think I am going to be there too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's all, Bu Areta, that we can say about Pak Daniel's presentation. Go back to you, Bu Areta. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I have to share the
token of appreciation.
Sorry.
Yeah. All right, Weka.
Yeah, here we go, Kak Daniel. Once again, thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Ibu Eka.
Thank you very much for sharing your ideas with us. And I do believe, I do hope, Bapak Ibu, that you are going to be able to apply everything given by Kak Daniel in this session. That's all for Kak Daniel's presentation. Go back to you, Bu Areta.
Okay, thank you very much, Bu Eka, for leading this very insightful sessions, and thank you, Pak Daniel, for sharing many applications and website that we can use on extensive reading class. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, Bapak Ibu, we go on the last sessions for the speaker, and the third speaker will be delivered by Bapak David Imam Yarta. He is my colleague in Universitas Jember, and this session will be led by Pak Bambang Suharjito. Pak Bambang, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Pak Bambang, yeah. Okay, so Pak Bambang, I give the floor to you to lead the third sessions.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, now we are going to have the third sections of the presentation presented by Pak David Imam Yarta. Used to be my student, but now become my college. No problem. Okay, before we go on with the presentation, I will read a bit history of the presenter. Okay. Yeah. The name of the presenter in this third session is David M. Marjanta, SPD, MPD. And he has got so many things to do along his career. He graduated at the English department in 2012, and then continued his study on master's degree on 2013 until 2015. And now he is working with his doctoral degree at Universitas Negeri Malang. And some of his achievements in research, for example, is in 2019, he conducted research eksplorasi pembelajaran CLIL, ya, Content and Language Integrated Learning, berbasis STEM, Science, Engineering, Technology, Arts, and Mathematics, pada mahasiswa di rumpun ilmu eksakta. This was one of his research. Dan the second research was implementasi media pembelajaran digital berbasis makromedia untuk materi bioteknologi berbahasa Inggris bagi siswa SD se-Kabupaten Jember. And the third research, the efficacy of 4Cs-based reading to foster 21st century learning competencies. And then the fourth research, the pain of disconnection, a vignette of Indonesian religiosity-based education toward character strengths. And then this is the one also. Pengembangan media pembelajaran berbasis makromedia untuk materi bioteknologi berbahasa Inggris bagi siswa SD se-Kabupaten Jember. And some of his other achievement here is being the presenter of the international seminar. Three of them are on International Conference on Language and Culture towards Intercultural Citizenship Education, developing EFL learners multi-perspectivity and critically literature circles, conducted in EIN Malang on 26 October 2019. And then the second presentation is in the second International Conference on Geography and Geography Education, engaging EFL readers in literature circles to escalate intercultural communicative competence at UNED on 28 September 2019. And then the other one is the International English Teachers and Lecturers Conference, EINELTA, fostering EFL readers getting academic emotions through blended literature circles. Then his scientific publication, two of them are EFL learners engagement and learning motivation in team-based mobile language learning through WhatsApp. And then the other one, an experiment on mobile learning to leverage EFL learners engagement, emotional intelligence, and learning motivation. Yeah, there are some here, too many to be read, but I will skip. And then the one is the effectuality and of animated media for teaching biotechnology materials in Indonesian rural primary schools. Okay, and then he has also published some books. Yeah. So one is English for Agriculture, published in 2019. Yeah, and then Biografi Dr. Insinyur Tarsius Sutekto, MSc, Kisah Perjuangan dan Inspirasi, published in 2020. And then, being journal reviewer, and editor, he has been engaged in some journals. One is Voice of English Language Education Society, VELS, from Universitas Hamsanwadi, sorry. And then EFL Forum, Universitas Negeri Semarang, International Journal on Food, Agriculture, and Natural Resources, and RACE Network. And then Reflective Practice, Taylor and Francis. And then Journal for Education and Instruction, Case Academic Network and Information Center. And then he has also some other achievement here. Journals of Article Review on Voice of English Language Society. And then on Journal Article Review on Voice of English Language Society, Journal Article and Review on, he became the reviewer of the article. And then he's got total score 633. That's amazing. Okay, and then also HAKI, Hak Kekayaan Internasional. He has published a book entitled English for Agriculture in 2020, and Panduan Penggunaan Sistem Informasi Mobile Digital Logbook Pendidikan Karakter Berbasis Religi. That's a guideline book, buku panduan. These are some of his achievements, I think, from Pak David Imam Yata, and that's a great achievement, I think, being young, but he has got so many achievements in his career. And let's make a shot. We will enjoy Pak David's presentation. Pak David, the mic is yours.
Yes, okay. Thank you so much, Pak Bambang, for reading the CV. It's been my pleasure to sharing and also presenting our work together in today's webinar. So again, I would like to say thank you so much to Pak Willy Renandia and also Pak Daniel Ari for sharing insightful presentations. And I believe that it has never been enough to learn from your presentations, be it about reading or the use of technology, because the theories and practices in language teaching are always evolving. So that's why we need to keep up with the changes and upgrade ourselves. Well, okay, and I would like also to thank the committees and also all of the audiences who have taken their time to join our webinar today. And I would like to greet my colleagues from Universitas Negeri Malang. I see Mas Apip, Mbak Uzi, Mbak Rida, also Mbak Imelda, also Mbak Afa. Thank you so much for being here. It's our pleasure, by the way, to have you here. Thank you. Right. Now, allow me to share my screen first. Okay. Right. Can you see my screen, Bambang? Is it?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Right. So we have learned so much from the first presentation and also the second presentations. Now in these last sessions, I know it's kind of exhausting because everybody has been in front of laptop for hours since morning. So maybe I just want to keep it brief and short, because I just want to talk about one tiny part, one tiny portion in the world of reading instruction, and that is going to be related to expanding intercultural learning through digital literature circles. So this is basically one of works that I did with my colleagues from the university. Actually, Bu Wilkis, Suereta, and also Pak Rizky were also involved in our study. So let me just take you through the presentation. All right. So the rationales in my research is actually related to the trends of globalization, because as we know now, every university has been trying to make some innovations in their instructions, such as project-based learning and also problem-based learning and research-based learning. Everything has been dynamic so far, and one of those reasons to those innovation is the new world workplace, which requires intercultural knowledge and also awareness. Because today, whether we realize it or not, university graduates not only need the knowledge and also skills, but they also need to be culturally aware, and they also need to be culturally skilled, because they will work with different people, they will engage in different societies and also different systems. And that is why intercultural learning has one proportion and contribution to our language teaching. And then it's been widely acknowledged in research that university students need to better understand and value cultural diversities. I actually found one research which actually reported that today's university students, to some extent, do not really have the sufficient understanding of the cultural diversities that they actually need to support their future career. And that is why, as a teacher, we cannot only rely on language skills, but we also need to prepare our students to be, social agents with wide range of intercultural knowledges. And then when it comes to language class, somehow teachers tend to give, extensive oral input, such as explanations and teacher's narration, and somehow this will lead to the lack of students' engagement. And then, as what Willie said, when students are not really engaged in the class, they're not really engaged in the reading, it is hardly likely that we can expect them to develop sufficient amount of intercultural knowledge and also understanding. So we need to give more freedom and also opportunity for the students to take part in developing their intercultural knowledge. And one of the ways to do so is through language class. Oops, sorry. Okay, so what is the role of language class actually in this case? So we as a language teachers, we have so much to do because we need to expose our students to diverse cultural values and properties. Because say with the use of technology, we can have videos from YouTube, we can have lots of texts from online resources, for example, and with all of the resources, we can help the students to develop their intercultural repertoires. And then also, language class is actually seen as a melting pot for cultures due to the overarching roles of English. Because right now, English is not only first language or second language, but English also serves as additional language and also lingua franca. And I think every one of us has been familiar with that. So with that roles of our class, it seems that we are going to have more tasks to do. We have more responsibilities to do. And that is related to teaching intercultural understanding, knowledge, and also skills. Now let's try to have a look at some previous works on cultural learning. So actually, if we browse the internet, there are actually so many works on cultural learning, and these are only a few of them. First, we have digital photograph. So in the digital photograph, the students are given the freedom to choose some photographs, pictures from the internet, and then they will be given some scaffolding questions to discuss the pictures. For example, who are the people in the picture, and then what they are doing, and then also what kind of environment they are engaged with. So that kind of task has been found to help students develop intercultural competence. And then also we have the digital storytelling. I think this has been popular not only among university students, but also students at the lower level, such as elementary schools. Because when students have the access to digital storytelling, they can have the freedom to express their understanding, they can have the freedom to express their knowledge, and also the development of their language skills. And then also, we also have the computer-mediated intercultural exchange. So this is actually something like the teleconference where students, two groups of students from two different countries, they have some discussions, meetings, and then they talk about some cultural issues and also historical issues, and try to see those issues from both perspectives. And in the end, students are actually encouraged to see their cultures, to see their identity from different points of view. And that means teachers can help the students to justify their stereotypes and also their bias whenever they encounter people from different cultures. And I think in the case of English teachers, that's going to be very important, because English teachers has the job to prepare the future learners to be aware of cultural diversities. And the last one is we have the online intercultural project, where students do some research, and then they create some posters, they create some videos, and then share the videos and post it with the societies, and try to raise the awareness of the bias related to historical events, for example. So these are actually some of the models that we can have as the background, as also the foundation to teach intercultural reading in our language class. Now, and then based on these readings, we actually come up with some gaps in research. So according to our literature reviews, we actually find two different gaps here, like how can actually literature circles develop literature skills while fostering intercultural communicative competence. So it is actually widely known that literature circles are used to develop language skills such as reading, vocabulary, writing, but actually we can also use it to improve students' intercultural communicative competence. But unfortunately, that is hardly researched. And then also the second gap is how can digital reading and writing be integrated into literature circles while developing intercultural communicative competence? Because, you know, it is widely known that literature circles usually take the form of print reading, but actually the trends has been growing to some extent because more and more research and practitioners use online resources such as web-based activities to support students' literature circles, and that can be a good point for inspiration. Right. Okay, thank you. Right, and now we actually use these guiding questions in our study. So there are two questions that we want to highlight. So how did the students engage with their intercultural learning through Digital Literature Circle or TLC? And then the second research question is, what affordances does TLC create to develop intercultural communicative competence?
No, please.
Right. Okay, now I just want to highlight some trends and also some realities that are actually happening in our country, in Indonesia. So basically, according to the Director General of Higher Education atau DITI, dan namanya memang cenderung berubah, kadang Kementerian Pendidikan dan Kebudayaan, and now we have different name. But whatever the name is, moral virtues or moral characters have always been the focus in our education. So if we look at the curriculum in elementary schools up to the university education, moral education has always given specific emphasis in our teaching. So I think that's going to be a clear indication that we also embrace intercultural discussions and learning in our class. And then also, there is also need to develop moral virtues in order to anticipate the social diversity and also the potential problems or issues due to social diversities. Because as we know in our country, somehow social or cultural diversity can be one issue, especially when it comes to broader contexts, such as in politics, economics, or educations. And then another point is intercultural communicative competence also relates to intercultural knowledge, awareness, and skills. And these 3 points, the knowledge, awareness, and also skill, are actually embedded in the moral education or moral virtues that are actually the focus in Indonesia's curriculum. Okay, now this is the theoretical framework that we use in our study. We revert to BIRAM's ICC framework. So according to BIRAM, there are 5 elements of intercultural communicative competence. So first, we have the knowledge, such as the knowledge of people from different cultures, knowledge of social systems and social practices, and also different beliefs and values. And then we also have openness and curiosity. Well, students also need to develop their openness, and also they have to be tolerant to diversities. And not only that, they actually need to develop the curiosity to research different parts of foreign cultures that are unknown to them. And the next one, it is also important for teachers to develop discovery skills and interactions. It actually deals with how students find and also discover unknown parts or blurred parts of different cultures, and how they can use this knowledge and understanding when they come up with real interaction. Because with technology these days, it is very easy for students to get involved in communication with people from different cultures or from different countries. Just like what we are doing right now with the power of Zoom, it is very easy for us to engage with multicultural communication. And then also we have the interpreting and also relating skills. So this is related to how the students interpret and make sense of cultural uniqueness of people from different language or different cultures, and how they can relate these cultural properties with their own cultural uniqueness. And the last one, we also have the critical cultural awareness. So this one deals with how the overall practices of intercultural learning change their attitude, change their belief, and also change their perceptions about themselves and also about people from different cultures. So this actually represents different levels of intercultural learning, right? And now let's try to go on to the next part. Now, how can we actually teach students about the cultural learning? So according to Porto, there are actually 4 different steps of how we can engage our students to learn different cultures and also develop their cultural understanding. So first one is the introductory stage. So this one, it deals with triggering or raising students' interest in one specific theme, where they can do research and also explore and also reflect on different cultures that they found in their online research. And then also the second one is awareness raising. So this is related to guiding students to analyze text as a representation of cultural diversity. Well, in this case, when it comes to text, it's not only about printed, text like written text or reading resources, but it also refers to multimodal media, such as pictures and also videos. So those resources have been widely used in today's language class. And the next one, we also have intercultural dialogue. And in this case, we actually engage our students to share their views and perceptions of cultural diversity based on the findings in the first 2 stages. So first, they need to do some research, and then they try to evaluate their findings, trying to decide which one is accurate, which one is relevant, which one is strong enough to support the discussions. And then they bring all of the resources in this 3rd stage, which is intercultural dialogue. And the last one, as the output, students will organize some civic or social actions in the social community. Just like what we mentioned earlier, it can take the form of sharing posters and also sharing videos through YouTube, for example, where they share the results of their findings and also discussions. Okay, now let's try to have like some reasons why intercultural communicative competence can be integrated into literature circles. So basically, when we try to engage our students in literature circles, we help them to develop critical thinking, awareness, and independence, as well as engagement. And these skills are actually important when they want to learn different cultures, when they want to develop intercultural understanding and also knowledge. So this is why so many research and studies have seen the awareness, independence, and also engagement as the core features to intercultural learning, just like what has been discovered in research by Piatkowska, for example. Okay, and this one is actually some rationales on how we should engage technology. So generally, in my case, students in the language class, they come with let's say suboptimal linguistic proficiency, like usually at the level of A2 or B1, and then therefore when they try to search for online resources, they can find so many complex texts and difficult texts, and to some extent that can be demotivating to them because they do not have sufficient linguistic repertoires. And when we use technology, it can help to compensate that deficiency, because students can use, for example, online dictionaries, and then they can use Google, for example, to choose texts that are relevant to them, and also they can meet their language level. And then also another point is digital resources helps to empower research, comprehension, literary analysis, and also reflections. Because once students engage in online research, they can actually find so many information, so many resources, and eventually they will be encouraged to criticize and evaluate the bias, the credibility of the authors, for example, and then they, develop as a critical readers when they engage in discussions. And then the last one is, I think that one has been highlighted previously. Technology also helps to stimulate deeper engagement and also meaning making in intercultural learning. Now, okay, now try to have a look at the role sheets and also roles in our digital literature circles. So first, in our study, we have this role, the discussion leader or the discussion manager. And this one deals with the knowledge and also the openness as well as curiosity, because once students take the roles of discussion leader or discussion manager, he has to decide the guiding questions or probing questions, and this eventually help them to unravel the unknown parts of target cultures. And as we can see here on the role sheets, there are different levels of knowledge, such as level 1, level 2, and level 3. So level 1, for example, is actually the factual understanding. So this is actually the lowest level. And then we have the interpretive understanding or implied understanding. And the last one, we have applied understanding. So the question, the answer to this question requires the students to reflect on their life, to reflect on their experience, not only reflect on the readings that they have done. And then with these levelings, students have more freedom and also more flexibility to continue with their extensive reading and also the intercultural learning. And also we have the second role. This one is the investigator. As the name implies, this one deals with the doing investigation on unclear parts of the text or unknown parts of the text, or anything that they want to know further, because this actually aims at building balanced cultural beliefs, views, and also attitudes. Because just like what Bob really said, before students read a text, they already have the belief, they already have the meanings in the head, they already have the schemata, and then these sets of prior knowledge will, decide what points or what aspects of the culture that they need to investigate. So actually, the students are free to do any research that they think relevant, like Google, for example, YouTube, TED, for example. Well, I believe that today's students know more than the teachers to some extent, because they use internet all the time. And then the third role is the connector. So this one has to do with the knowledge and also the openness as well as curiosity. Once students take the role of connector, they have to find the links between the texts and also their cultures and also their life. And then this helps them to see the target cultures and also the different community from different cultures through their perspective. And then, but this is actually not only between the text and the readers, but also between readers. So actually, students can actually build the connections or the links between themselves and the text, and also among peers. So that will enrich the discussions in the digital literature circles. And then last one, or the last part, is the summarizer. And yeah, I think this is quite clear for the names. The ones who are responsible as the summarizer deals with the interpreting and also relating skills by identifying and the connection among the informations and also resources that they have found as a team. So the summarizer has to connect all information that have been submitted by the discussion manager, investigator, and also the connector. So this job is not only making a summary, but also making the connection and also making sense of the whole discussions. So those are the 4 roles that we can use in digital literature circles. But of course, there are so many options and also roles that we can use in our class. And this is the setting in our study. So this one is actually qualitative study in the form of participatory research. And the class was run for 3 months. And we talk about diverse cultures from inner circles, outer circles, and also expanded circles. And in terms of the data, we collected data from role sheets and also focus group discussions. And here, as we can see, there were some questions that we raised in the discussions. So there were like 5 questions that we raised and we talk about with the students. Now we will try to have a look at the stages in digital literature circle. So there are 4 stages in our research. So first stage, the teacher has to inform the topic to address and also guide the students to decide the subtopic as their discussion focus. So for example, when the topic is American culture, they can have like, for example, the cultures of the students in America. For example, they can talk about the etiquette in America, and also they can talk about the fashion of food in America, for example. So each group will have different focus for the discussions. And then after that, teacher has to monitor the students' progress. In this case, we need to make sure that they read relevant text for them. So this can be done by checking the flash reading ease by using online flash reading calculator. And then in stage number 3, we monitor the students when they write their reflections in their role-based sheets. And then last one, in stage number 4, we help the students to publish their discussion results. And this can take the form of video and also posters. So it's actually quite short and simple. And we can do all these 4 stages in maybe 2 meetings or 3 meetings, depending on our students' progress. Right, maybe I will just be quick on the findings. So the first findings that we discovered was the breadth. Oh, sorry. Okay, can you hear my voice, Pak Bambang? Is it audible now?
Yes, still audible, Kak.
Yeah, thank you, Mega. Right, so the first finding is the breadth of digital research helps the students to expand their intercultural knowledge and skills. So our students actually use different platforms and different resources to help them, complete their tasks, such as social media. And social media has been a powerful resource to get cultural information. And then also the probing questions help them to decide different cultural knowledge that they want to unravel or that they want to research, for example. And then next one, we have the second finding. I'm sorry. Right. Whenever the students engage in, reflections and also discussions, it actually helps them to take part in shared reflections. And this helps them to do some comparative interpretation and also develop positive attitudes Why comparative interpretation? Because when they learn one specific culture, such as Japanese culture, for example, they actually, compare that target culture with their own cultures, and then they develop more positive understanding and more positive attitudes by looking at the Japanese cultures from Japanese perspective rather than different perspective. And then the third finding is the students actually develop critical cultural awareness in technology enhanced transactional reading. So as I mentioned earlier, the students have different backgrounds, different beliefs, different values when it comes to learning cultures. And then after they engage in discussions, reflections, they actually adjust their belief, and also they try to balance their bias and stereotypes. And therefore, they can see target cultures or foreign cultures in a more positive ways rather than judgmental. Okay. Right, okay. And then here is one example of the students' work. So the students develop one poster or one visual to summarize and also to present their results. So this one actually deals with the etiquette or food culture in UK. So as we can see, there are some points or some information that have been put by the summarizer, connector, and also the investigator. Well, to keep it brief, there are actually 2 points that I want to highlight. The first one is the first discussion is related to intercultural learning through digital literature circles. So that's the first theme in our research. And another theme is the affordances of digital literature circles. Right. So whenever we try to engage our students in literature circles, they become exposed to and also aware of cultural diversities through discussions and also online research. And this helps them to become more interculturally knowledgeable. And then also the inquiry-driven discourse expands their intercultural knowledge, because one student brings one result from online research, and then another peer or another group member will try to add to the discussion and also enrich the discussions. And then last one, with digital resources, students will gain a more complex combinations of knowledge, skills, and also attitudes, especially when they manage to decenter from their own cultural perspective. Say, for example, when they see Western cultures from Western cultures perspective. Okay, hang on a bit. I think my connection is a bit slow. Right, and also there are actually 2 affordances of digital literature circles. So the first one is the technological affordance. So DLC helps the students to obtain a critical perspective and genuine understanding of the world, rather than merely reporting facts. So it's not only like, okay, students are going to find information, make lists, and then share. No, they actually, develop as a critical readers, because they try to criticize and evaluate the information and try to find the actual or the accurate information about the target cultures. And then also another one is the socio-constructivist affordance. So DLC as a transactional process helps to stimulate students' intercultural flexibility, awareness, and openness to cultural diversities. So this is actually done by developing intercultural knowledge and also developing their cultural awareness, understanding, and also develop more positive attitudes to cultural diversities. Right, now we actually come up with the wrap up or the conclusion. So the first conclusion that we want to highlight is TLC encourages digital research, discursive space, which is important for self and shared reflection, and also comparative interpretations. So whenever we want to teach cultures or cultural understanding to our students, literature circles or digital literature circles can be one option or avenue to help our students develop their openness and also curiosity to diversities. And then also point number 2, whenever we find that our students have low reading comprehension or limited proficiency, that's not going to be an issue, because actually with DLC, we can help our students to engage in transnational reading and research of cultural diversities, because online research and also technologies can help the students to compensate their limited language proficiency, such as the use of online dictionary and also online research. And then, as we all know, when we have been successful to teach cultures in our language class, that has been one indication that actually DLC can help teachers to develop both reading comprehension as one instrumental goal, and also helps to develop cultural learning as the educational goal. So it's not only about reading comprehension, it's not only about evaluation, but it's also about being a full human being or social agent. Well, I guess that's the end of my presentation, Bambang and Memeka. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, Bambang?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. If it is okay, I would like to show one video from our cluster. Is it okay? Maybe like 1 or 2 minutes?
Okay, go on.
Okay. Okay, this is actually one sample video about the Canadian culture. Right, so here we go.
Hello guys, this is me Fala from the second group. Well, our group will discuss about 8 interesting facts about Canadian culture. As the discussion leader, I have made 3 questions. After mentioning my questions, I will give you some information about the questions that I've made. Okay, let's go to the first question. Why do Canadians love maple syrup so much? It is because maple trees can be found around every corner in Canada. And then the second one, how do Canadians make everyone in their country feel like accepted and welcome? The answer is, they made an active and progressive effort to make everyone feel accepted and welcome through the progressive nature of Canada's culture and society that down into nearly every aspect of life, such as social relationships, workplace environments, etc. And then the last one, if there are some tourists that come to Indonesia, will you welcome them as warm as Canadians do? The answer is, of course I will. As a good native, it becomes a must for us to welcome them warmly because they are our guests. It also becomes our duty to make them feel comfortable and happy or enjoy their trips here. If they are happy, they might come here for the next trip, and it will surely bring many advantages for our country, right? Well, that's all. The other information will be delivered by my friends.
Hello guys, it's me, Fathan. As a summarizer, I will give you some interesting facts about Canada. A common Canadian stereotype is being apologetic and saying sorry a lot. Canadians are so apologetic that they actually have an apology act. Essentially, in Canada, an apology is interpreted as a sympathetic or regretful expression as opposed to an admissible legal apology in court under this act. As a matter of fact, hockey is Canada's national sport for the winter and lacrosse is their national summer sport. Don't be surprised if your Canadian friends are playing or watching hockey in their spare time. About
Well, okay. I think that's all I can show. Bang, thank you so much.
Thank you, Pak David, for the great presentation. And we have one question from the participant coming from Mr. Rudy Umardani. I still remember him. I think he's supposed to be the student in our study program. The question is, what principles must we take into account in DLC for teaching reading comprehension? That's the question.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. And also thank you for the question, Rudy. I think the first point that we have to highlight is the students level. I mean, like the language level or reading comprehension level. If our students say at the university level, it is going to be quite okay to give a text with flash reading A's of, like 40 or 60, that's going to be fine. And then if the text is going to be too difficult for them, they're not going to feel motivated, and then they will quit immediately. And by contrast, if the text is too easy for them, well, they will not feel the challenge, and they will not see the value of continuing with their reading. So the first point, I guess, the language level. And point number 2 is the interest. In the case of university students, I think it's quite easy to anticipate the students' interest by looking at their major or their program. Say, for example, when we teach students in the Faculty of Economy, then a lot of readings have to be related to that major, because that will have them enough opportunity to engage with the text because they have sufficient background knowledge or schemata. And then also they will see the value of reading because they will see the information beneficial for them to develop their expertise as future graduates from the Faculty of Economy, for example. And then I think number 3 is the way we evaluate, also assess our students. In DLC, we do not really assess our students' comprehension, so we actually use some kind of rubrics, and these rubrics have to be adjusted and relevant to different roles. So I think I can show you one sample of this current rubric that we use, for example. Is it on my screen, Babang?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. Right, so as we can see over here, we have different roles: discussion leader, investigator, and summarizer. And each of these roles actually has different rubric and also different descriptors. So by using this specific rubric, we can actually help our students to evaluate and also measure their performance whenever they do different roles in digital literacy circles. Well, I'm not saying that reading comprehension is bad for DLC, no. So reading comprehension questions can be another alternative to measure our students' performance after they take part in DLC. Yes, I guess that's my answer, Pak Bambang.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more question from the participants? If you don't mind, you can ask the question to Pak David directly. I give you a chance to do that. Okay, seems to be so exhausted with 4 hours in session having webinar. Okay, no more question, I think. I will invite Pak Willy to have a comment if he is willing to do that. Pak Willy?
You are still mute, Pak.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are
there any questions from me, or
if maybe you have some comments from David's presentation?
Oh, it was an excellent presentation. I like what he said about the importance of being exposed to different cultures. I think that's very important. Even within Indonesia, I think we need to learn to appreciate the diversity of cultures in Indonesia. There are hundreds of different languages and different ethnic groups and different cultures as well. Yes, they are different, but difference does not mean deficient. Difference means they're just different. And we need to learn how to appreciate differences. I think I like what David was presenting. After all, our philosophy in Indonesia is unity in diversity. I think we should never forget that. The diversity bit is what makes Indonesia truly, truly beautiful. So yes, cultural differences are things that we need to appreciate. And by reading, doing a lot of reading, I think we will gradually and slowly develop, sensitivity actually in understanding, in appreciating, in valuing different cultures. We are not the best. I think a lot of people in Indonesia say that, well, Indonesia is the best. No, we're not the best. We are just different from other people. Because other countries will also say the same thing, that they are the best. What if we say that every single culture is the best in its own right? I think that would be beautiful, isn't it? So yes, I would go for intercultural competence, which is an important knowledge and skill that we need to teach our students. But it all starts with us, the teacher. If you value differences, and if you model to your students how you value differences, cultural differences, I think your students will see that differences are good and differences are a fact of life. So go for it, David. Is that part of your thesis, your dissertation? What you're thinking to do?
Yeah, there was no, not my research actually.
Okay.
Not my dissertation. Thank you.
Okay, that would be a very interesting, topic for your doctoral dissertation at UM, Universitas Malang.
Yes, I'm definitely thinking about that one, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Willy, for the comments. And
Sure.
Is there any more questions from the participants? Let me see. Okay, seems that there is no more questions. The participant, we have come to the end of the third session, presentation from Pak David. I hope that what has been shared, Pak David's sharing in knowledge, and maybe Pak Daniel will have something to say.
Yeah, probably. I think what David just presented is also very helpful for us to think of how to teach language using different contexts. Yeah, I also ever worked on CLIL with my students, and we worked on PPL, and it's actually also challenging, yet yeah, we can always talking about culture, as Pak Willy said, is always awesome. And one more thing that I want to suggest to all of us here, especially teachers, yeah, we need to think creatively to use technology, because Pak David's students also worked on a video presented using, I know it's not easy to create such a video, yeah, and that's why being a teacher now is not easy, because students need more challenges. So I guess, yeah, we need to start from a simple way on how to design materials and how to present yeah, like that just shared. Those are not new ideas, but Bapak Ibu needs to just give it a try. Just try to connect one content with the other context. So that's why later reading activities would be much more challenging, not just conventional one, but yeah, something more useful for students for their future, which can include 20% skills as well. I think that's all. Thank you so much, Pak Bambang, for the chance.
Okay, welcome. Thank you, Pak Daniel, for the comments, and Pak David also. And I think that's all what we have done in the webinar today. And Pak David, for the creation of the presentation, I will have something for you. Yeah, okay. Pak David is. Yeah, can you see the sharing box?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Let's
I'm
give
really honored to have the certificate. Thank you.
Okay, and this is the end of the session from Pak David, and we will go back to the MC, Rita. We go back to you.
All right. All right. Thank you, Pak Bambang, for leading this the outstanding sessions for today's webinar. And okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our main sessions, and we go on the closing sessions. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, okay, wait, the committee, please share the link on the chat box. I mean the link of certificate or exit certificate for today's webinar. And again, I would like to remind you that the link will be closed on 4 p.m. on today. I mean, okay. Again and again, I would like to remind you that the link of certificate will be closed at 4 p.m. I mean, okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention for our webinar, and for the speakers, Pak Willy, Pak Daniel, Pak David, I would like to say thank you for your insightful and useful presentations today. And okay, and we are going to see you again on the next webinar. Check our website and our social media, and see you again. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you.
Bapak Ibu, before leaving this Zoom, please
yeah,
a moment. I'm going to take your photo. So there are
photo sessions. Yeah,
there are 5 screens here. Give me 5 of your best smiles. Okay. Yeah, will you please open your camera, Bapak Ibu? Yeah, the first screen. 1, 2, 3. Smile. The second one. Smile. Okay, the third one. Now we come to the fourth one. And finally, we come to the 5th one. Yeah, once again, Bapak Ibu, thank you very much for your coming. Thank you very much, Pak Willy, Kak Daniel, and also Pak David and Pak Bambang Suarcito for coming into this session, and also Bapak Ibu for joining this webinar. And yes, as what it is said by Ibu Areta, wait for our next webinar, and I do believe that it is going to be with Pak Willy again. So Pak Willy, we are going to wait for your presentation in our next webinar. Once again, thank you, Bapak Ibu, and please give big applause to all of the speakers today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
See you again. Bye-bye.
See you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for
Soon.
today.
Thank you,
See you
Kak Daniel.
again.
Thank you, Pak Willy, Kak David, and Bapak Ibu. If you're wondering about our past webinars, you can check out our YouTube channel. It is English FKIP UNED, because you can see wonderful performance from our speakers like Pak Willy, Pak Kumawang Jeti, Ibu Vita, Kak Daniel, and our lecturers and many more wonderful speakers in those webinars. So I've provided the link for the YouTube channel in the chat box. So you can just check that and make sure that you do not forget the attendance link to fill in the attendance link. Thank you very much. I'm giving it back to Bu Areta. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bu Bilkis. Thank you, Bu Eka. Thank you for all of the committee. Thank you all.
Bu Areta bisa tanya, Bu? Bu Areta.
Yes, ma'am.
Bu Aneta, itu tadi saya coba klik untuk ngisi sertifikat ya. Terus diminta untuk login dulu ya. Diminta Anda harus login. Saya klik login tapi kok nggak bisa ya? Salah di mana ya?
Nanti ya, Ma'am, di luar ini.
Okay.
It is still recorded in our YouTube channel.
Okay, thank you, sorry. Yuk, thank you.
Once again, Bapak Ibu, please remember that the exit ticket is going to be closed at 4 o'clock. So be there and try to fill in the exit ticket before 4 o'clock.
Matur nuwun Pak Bambang.
Sama-sama, Jen Live untuk melanjutkan kuliah.
Monggo, monggo, Bambang.
Nggih, matur nuwun Pak Bambang.
Sama-sama.
Terima kasih Bu Zaki.
Oh ya.